Chapter 1168, Audacious Demon Monkey. Chapter 1168, Audacious Demon Monkey. It was already mid-March by the time the North Region Dao meet ended. It was only about 20 days away from April 5th. On this day, a group of cultivators arrived above the old capital of Yen country. The leader wore green robes and had black hair that flowed down like a waterfall. His eyes were clear. It was Su Zimo. Monkey, the spirit tiger, Ching Ching, night spirit, the golden lion, Cuckoo and Yen Chi stood behind him. Su Zimo looked at his homeland with a conflicted expression. Because the capital was trampled by the cultivators of Glass Palace in the past, it had long been reduced to ruins and no longer flourished. After more than 100 years, this place was still deserted. There were some dilapidated walls and courtyards that might still have some traces of the past. Su Zimo said nothing and watched in silence. Tears welled up and his vision gradually blurred. Too many things had happened in this capital and homeland. He was born here. That night, the Su family met with a calamity. Su Hong's face was slashed and his head was almost split into two. Su Hong brought him and Xiaoning out of the capital. They were forced to leave their hometown and had to hide their identities. Many years later, he killed his way back single-handedly and beheaded the king of Yen in this capital. Later on, the capital was destroyed and countless living beings were buried here. His old friends Luyu Yuchihua Song Chi, the black armored cavalry were all buried under this ruin. The first time he had the intention to establish his Dao heart was here. In a daze, Su Zimo seemed to see an old man in his twilight years standing on the ruins with tears streaming down his face. "Brother?" Su Zimo called softly. The old man vanished silently. Su Zimo quickly realized that it was merely a figure in the depths of his memories. Everything was no longer there. Yen Chi and the others did not understand why Su Zimo's eyes were filled with tears. They could not understand his feelings and longing for this land either. "I am fine." After a long time, Su Zimo said, "I'll stay here for the next few days and prepare to fight Xianyu. Don't worry." He had already cultivated to the peak of the late-stage void reversion realm before the North Region Dao meet. After a huge battle and returning to his homeland, he could already sense the opportunity to break through. The next realm was the perfected void reversion realm. "Let's go. Don't disturb him." Monkey waved his hand and pointed into the distance. "I'll let you guys take a look at the place where I first met first. I was once the king of that forest." "Sure." Ching Ching clapped her hands in agreement. "Just nice, Brother Monkey can tell us about your glorious past." "No problem." Monkey seemed to have recalled something as he grinned. "By the way, Night Spirit was also brought out from that forest when he was still an egg." After Monkey's antics, everyone felt much more relaxed. "You guys go ahead. I'll stay here to accompany the young master." Yen Chi said, "If you want to break through, you'll have to have someone guarding you." Although she wanted to take a look and listen to Monkey talk about the young master's past, nothing was more important to her than Su Zimo's safety. "Let's go then." The spirit tiger beckoned. "Sister Yen Chi, let us know if anything happens." "Don't worry, First is about to fight Dao Lord Xianyu. Before that, no one should come looking for trouble with First." Ching Ching analyzed. After bidding farewell, Monkey led everyone towards Tsonglang Mountain Range. Su Zimo descended slowly and arrived at the only intact hall in the palace. He murmured, "Let's do it here." "All right, young master, go cultivate. I'll guard outside." Yen Chi stood outside the door with a focused expression like a little door guardian. Monkey led everyone towards Tsonglang Mountain Range. If it was any ordinary person, they would take at least a month or two to reach Tsonglang Mountain Range from the old capital of Yen country. However, Monkey and the others were all at the void reversion realm. As they sped along, they arrived above Tsonglang Mountain Range in less than 2 hours. "Is this the place?" Looking at the extended mountain range beneath their feet, the spirit tiger and the others looked around curiously. Initially, this mountain range was boundlessly vast. However, it was far inferior compared to the Thousand Demon Valley of the Middle Continent. Tsonglang Mountain Range could not even compare to a corner of Howling Moon Mountain, let alone Thousand Demon Valley. Monkey and the others looked extremely relaxed as they gazed at the mountain range beneath their feet. Thousand Demon Valley was like a vast ocean. However, Tsonglang Mountain Range was merely a shallow beach. Monkey and the others were fiend demons that had fought their way out of the ocean. Now that they looked back at the shallow beach, they naturally did not take it seriously. Given their cultivation, they could cover more than half of Tsanglang mountain range with their spirit consciousnesses. Right there. Monkey led everyone through the air above the mountain range and pointed to a valley not far away, grinning. This is where I first met First. At that time, First was in a terrible state and was almost devoured by a pack of wolves. Thankfully, I appeared in time, hee. At the mention of that, Monkey was still proud. The spirit tiger pouted in disapproval. However, he did not dare to refute or mock Monkey, afraid that he would anger the latter into beating him up. Halt. Right then, a figure soared into the air and stopped Monkey and the others in their tracks. The person was clad in purple armor and exuded a demonic aura. His gaze was sharp as he glared at Monkey and the others with an unfriendly expression. Monkey and the others could clearly see that the intruder was also a demon and his true form was a purple-winged eagle. The purple-winged eagle asked in a deep voice, "Which mountain are you from? Why did you barge into Tsanglang mountain range without permission?" "My." The spirit tiger whistled and teased, "Brother Monkey, these cubs of Tsanglang mountain range sure are impressive." Monkey grinned as well. He looked at the purple-winged eagle not far away and nodded. "Not bad, not bad. When I left, there were no fiend demons in Tsanglang mountain range. To think that there would be a fiend demon now, even though it's a low-level one." Low-level fiend demons were equivalent to nascent souls. Of course, low-level fiend demons were nothing in the eyes of Monkey and the others. The spirit tiger was one of the territorial lords of Howling Moon Mountain and had countless fiend demons under his command. He was used to calling them cubs and children. When he saw a low-level fiend demon, he naturally blurted out the word, "cub." Unexpectedly, the purple-winged eagle's expression darkened as it glared at the spirit tiger and the others with hostility. "Does that mean that you guys want to offend my Tsanglang mountain range?" Monkey waved it off and said proudly, "Offended my ass. I'm the king of the mountains here." Audacious demon monkey. The purple-winged eagle's expression changed as it hollered, "There's a territorial lord in Tsanglang mountain range. How dare you spout nonsense here?" After holding it in for a long time, Ching Ching could not help but burst into laughter. "Ha! I'm dying of laughter." The spirit tiger could not stop laughing as well. The golden lion and the others snickered at the side, watching Monkey make a fool of himself. Along the way, Monkey boasted about how impressive he was back in Tsanglang mountain range. To think that he would be berated by a low-level fiend demon the moment he arrived. Furthermore, he was scolded as a demon monkey. Monkey was equally depressed. Even at Howling Moon Mountain, no one dared to scold him as a demon monkey. To think that he would be snubbed the moment he arrived at Tsanglang mountain range. Chapter 1169 Paradise. Chapter 1169, Paradise. The most amusing thing was that the purple-winged eagle before them was merely a low-level fiend demon. However, this low-level fiend demon did not show any fear when he saw the group of mid-level fiend demons and even dared to stand out and berate them. Was this purple-winged eagle just naive or did it have something to rely on? With a sweep of his spirit consciousness, Monkey enveloped most of Tsanglang mountain range and could not help but exclaim softly. He could sense the auras of 5 low-level fiend demons after a brief check. When he left, there was not a single low-level fiend demon in the mountain range. It had only been 100 years and so many demons had grown into fiend demons. "Alright, I'll cut to the chase. Who is your territorial lord? Get him to meet me." Monkey waved his hand and could not be bothered with this low-level fiend demon. "Humph." The purple-winged eagle harumphed coldly. "Our territorial lord is not someone you can meet just because you want to. You better leave quickly or else." "Cut the crap." Monkey looked impatient and rolled his eyes. He strode forward and reached out with his palm. Dharmic powers coiled around it as he grabbed towards the purple-winged eagle. The purple-winged eagle's expression changed. There was no time to think. It channeled its blood chi and wanted to transform into its true form to escape from Monkey's attack range. Unexpectedly, Monkey released a massive spirit consciousness that descended and suppressed it. Under the envelopment of the spirit consciousness, the purple-winged eagle's blood chi was almost stagnant and could not be activated. It could not even conjure its true form. How strong! The purple-winged eagle's heart sank. This was not only a suppression of cultivation realm, it was a suppression of bloodline. The difference in their bloodlines caused his bloodline to be unable to put up any resistance, just like a mouse meeting a cat. Monkey's furry palm covered the skies. A huge shadow loomed over. In a flash, Monkey grabbed the back of the purple-winged eagle's neck and lifted it effortlessly. Although the purple-winged eagle was a low-level fiend demon, it was like a weak and pitiful chick being carried by Monkey. The purple-winged eagle was completely stunned. After it was grabbed by Monkey, its body stiffened and its Dharmic powers were restricted. It could not exert any strength at all. It was subdued with a single move. "Demon Monkey, let go of me." The purple-winged eagle hollered with a flushed face. "Your ramblings are too noisy." Monkey shook the purple-winged eagle in his hands continuously. The purple-winged eagle felt as though its bones were about to fall apart. However, it still said weakly, "If the Territorial Lord finds out that you guys barged into Tsonglang Mountain Range and even dared to attack me, why, ha?" It was dizzy from the monkey's shaking and could not catch its breath, hence it could not continue to speak. "Since I have nothing to do, who is your Territorial Lord? I'll go meet him." Monkey had already made up his mind to teach this Territorial Lord a lesson in front of the Spirit Tiger and the others to regain his dignity. "Territorial Lord of Tsonglang Mountain Range, hurry and come out." The Spirit Tiger's voice spread to every corner of the mountain range. There was no reply from the mountain range. "The Overlord of Howling Moon Mountain has arrived. Why isn't a puny Territorial Lord coming forth to greet him?" The Spirit Tiger shouted again and even revealed his identity, raising his status further. There was still no one from Tsonglang Mountain Range. "What Territorial Lord? He's so scared that he doesn't even dare to show his face." The Golden Lion grinned. "Nonsense." At this moment, the purple-winged eagle caught its breath and gritted its teeth. "Our Territorial Lord is not in Tsonglang Mountain Range at all." The Spirit Tiger asked, "Where did he run off to?" "Just nearby." The purple-winged eagle said in a deep voice, "If you guys want to suffer, I'll bring you guys over." "Wow, he's sure a big deal, eh? I'll see for myself what sort of an amazing figure your Territorial Lord is." Monkey sneered and asked, "How do we go?" The purple-winged eagle raised its arm and pointed in a direction. "There's a town more than 50 kilometers away. The Territorial Lord cultivates there all year round." "Town?" The Spirit Tiger pursed his lips. "What kind of weirdo is that? As a demon, he's not staying in Tsonglang Mountain Range. Instead, he's cultivating in a town." Without another word, Monkey sped in that direction with the purple-winged eagle. Before long, they were getting closer to the town mentioned by the purple-winged eagle. On both sides of the road, apart from some common vegetation, there were also peach trees. Right now, it was the beginning of spring and sprouts were appearing on the branches. They were dotted with green spots and were full of life. In the distance, a town could be vaguely seen. Monkey frowned slightly and asked softly, "The Territorial Lord of Tsonglang Mountain Range is in this town?" "That's right." The purple-winged eagle replied. "This should be Pingyang Town." Monkey grumbled. "What about Pingyang Town?" Confused, the Spirit Tiger and the others asked instinctively. Monkey explained, "First was originally from Pingyang Town. Before he started cultivating, he was a scholar here." The Spirit Tiger and the others were enlightened. Before long, everyone arrived at Pingyang Town. After 100 years, Pingyang Town was much larger than before. Pingyang Town did not seem to be affected at all in this chaotic period where wars were everywhere. It was like a paradise. The town was bustling with people and carriages. At a glance, it was even livelier than most cities. The mortals in this town seemed to be doing well. Ching Ching blinked and said in surprise. The purple-winged eagle said proudly, "That's only natural. With our Territorial Lord protecting the citizens, no one can harm them." Over the years, the Territorial Lord has stood out to chase away many intruders that wanted to offend Pingyang Town, similar to you guys. Monkey and the others exchanged glances and marveled. As a demon and the Territorial Lord of Tsonglang Mountain Range, it was indeed strange that he would come here to protect the mortals of Pingyang Town. Because of that, Monkey and the others were less hostile towards this Territorial Lord. Shaking its head, the Spirit Tiger was surprised as well. Indeed, it's strange. Even mortals with strong bodies can only live for less than 100 years. Look, there are so many old men in this town who are more than 100 years old. There's no sign of them ever cultivating. All of them are mortals. Indeed. Everyone swept their spirit consciousnesses and saw many old men with long lifespans. Longevity Town? It was already good enough to survive in this chaotic period of time, let alone enjoy longevity. However, the mortals in Pingyang town lived a blissful life with rosy cheeks and healthy bodies. When the purple-winged eagle saw the shock on Monkey and the others' faces, its expression turned even more disdainful as it said proudly, "How can you rude fiend demons understand the methods of the Territorial Lord?" "What do you mean?" The Golden Lion asked. "Are the lives of these mortals related to your Territorial Lord?" "Of course." The purple-winged eagle said with certainty, "The Territorial Lord's powers are boundless. It's not something you fiend demons can understand." Upon hearing what the purple-winged eagle said, everyone was even more curious about this Territorial Lord. "Is he in the town now? Why don't I see him?" Monkey frowned. He released his spirit consciousness and searched for a long time but could not find any demonic chi in Pingyang town. "Haha, the Territorial Lord is right here. However, it's impossible for you guys to discover his tracks." When the purple-winged eagle saw Monkey at a loss, it mocked loudly. The spirit tiger, Ching Ching and the others shook their heads as well, finding nothing. "This Territorial Lord can hide from our spirit consciousness detection." Monkey murmured, "Indeed, he has some tricks up his sleeves." Chapter 1170, Appearance of the Territorial Lord. Chapter 1170, Appearance of the Territorial Lord. "I advise you to give up." The purple-winged eagle said, "You can't find the Territorial Lord at all." "Shut up." Monkey felt a headache coming on because of the purple-winged eagle's constant nagging. Now that he was outmatched by this unknown Territorial Lord, he was enraged and shook the purple-winged eagle's body forcefully. The purple-winged eagle was stunned again. Monkey looked at Night Spirit. "Fifth, you can't find anything either?" Although Monkey, the Spirit Tiger and Ching Ching were ranked ahead of Night Spirit in terms of seniority, they knew that Night Spirit definitely surpassed them in terms of combat strength. Without saying anything, Night Spirit's gaze shifted to an empty courtyard in Pingyang town. There was no one in the courtyard and the decorations were simple. Apart from the stone table and stool, there was only a peach blossom tree. "What do you mean?" The Spirit Tiger looked around and asked. "That Territorial Lord is hiding in this courtyard." As he said that, he released his spirit consciousness to check. However, there was still nothing after a moment. "There's nothing." The Spirit Tiger blinked. "Night Spirit, that won't do. You're inferior to him as well." Night Spirit smiled and shook his head, pointing to the inconspicuous peach blossom tree in the courtyard. "The peach blossom tree? It became a spirit?" Monkey frowned slightly. There were too many peach blossom trees around Pingyang town. Even if anyone caught sight of them, they wouldn't pay any attention. However, through Night Spirit's reminder, everyone focused their attention on the peach blossom tree and gradually discovered something unusual. Suddenly, the peach blossom tree vanished in front of everyone. Right after, a figure appeared before everyone. Monkey and the others were initially wary. However, everyone was stunned when they saw who it was. The person was wearing a white shirt and looked to be around 8 or 9 years old. He was a young lad with a tender face and bright black eyes. Where did this child come from? The Spirit Tiger asked instinctively without understanding what was going on. Monkey rolled his eyes. "Are you blind? Can't you see that the peach blossom tree in the courtyard is gone?" "I know, but..." The Spirit Tiger scratched his head and looked at the boy not far away, asking in disbelief, "This child is the Territorial Lord of Tsanglang Mountain Range." In their imaginations, if one could become a Territorial Lord, even if they did not have 3 heads and 6 arms and were fiendish, they would have to be like Monkey and Spirit Tiger, imposing and intimidating. To everyone's surprise, a pink and tender child appeared out of nowhere like a porcelain doll. It was far from what they had expected. Monkey scratched his head as well, feeling troubled. It would be easier if a fiendish person were to appear. All he had to do was release thunderous means to suppress the latter. However, he truly did not know what he was supposed to do against such a tender child. He was afraid that he would kill the boy with a single punch. Furthermore, the boy looked so pure and innocent that he could not bring himself to do it. When Ching Ching and Coco caught sight of the child, their eyes lit up and shone with motherly love. They could not wait to hug the child and cherish him. "Who are you guys?" The child asked sternly with a serious expression. "Are you guys here to harm others as well?" Although he was questioning, the boy's voice was soft and pleasant to the ears. "Territorial Lord, save me." The purple-winged eagle shouted hurriedly. The child pouted and seemed to be a little angry as he berated Monkey. "Demon, hurry and let Uncle Purple Bird go." Uncle Purple Bird will feel terrible if you carry him like this. Black lines streaked across the purple-winged eagle's face as it grit its teeth. Territorial Lord, how many times have I told you? Please don't call me Uncle Purple Bird in front of outsiders. Ha 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 ha. The spirit tiger and golden lion burst into laughter. Monkey grinned as well, finding it interesting, but he did not loosen his grip. Child, what's your name? Ching Ching came before the boy and squatted down, asking with a gentle expression. The boy turned his head slightly and blinked his large eyes, seemingly troubled. He thought hard for a long time and said dejectedly, I don't have a name. Why don't you have a name? Ching Ching asked again, where are your parents? I don't have parents either. The boy shook his head. The purple-winged eagle was almost in tears. He was carried by Monkey the entire way and initially thought that the Territorial Lord would be able to save him. To think that the Territorial Lord had forgotten about him. He was even chatting with the Fiend demons opposite him. You don't have any relatives even? Ching Ching was filled with pity. I do. Unexpectedly, the boy nodded hurriedly when he heard that. I have kin. The young master is my kin. Pausing for a moment, a look of disappointment flashed through the boy's eyes as he lowered his head. However, the young master has left and hasn't returned for a long time. I miss him so much. The boy's eyes were a little moist and sparkled. Ching Ching hugged the boy hurriedly and consoled him softly, don't cry, don't cry. It's all that young master's fault. He's the worst after not returning to see you for so long. All of a sudden, Ching Ching felt a tremendous force burst forth from her embrace and the boy broke free from her hug. The boy took 2 steps back and glared at her furiously. You're not allowed to say that. The boy's brows were almost raised, he was clearly enraged. He clenched his small fists tightly as an extremely terrifying aura emanated from his body. He hollered furiously, you're a bad person for saying that about young master. All of you. However, Ching Ching was not annoyed. She merely lamented internally, this child is innocent and naive. His method of judging whether someone is good or bad is truly simple. It seemed like that young master held an extremely important position in the child's heart. While Ching Ching was deep in thought, the spirit tiger sensed the aura of the boy and was startled, pulling her back hurriedly. They were confused by the boy's appearance and almost forgot that he was a territorial lord. Although he was also at the void reversion realm, he could hide from their senses. Nobody could become a territorial lord without being exceptional. The boy's gaze shifted and he frowned slightly. Uncle Purple Bird, how come you were captured by them? Heavens, it's all thanks to that young master. The purple-winged eagle sighed into the skies with a bitter expression. Territorial Lord, you've finally remembered me. You guys are truly bad people. When the boy saw that, he was even more convinced. This time round, he no longer hesitated and walked towards Monkey and the others with a stern expression. The aura within his body rose continuously. Hee. Rubbing his palms together, the spirit tiger said, Brother Monkey, leave this child to me. Let me teach him a lesson. Be gentle. Ching Ching said fiercely, if you dare hurt him, I'll break your legs. The spirit tiger said bitterly, all right, I'll hold back a little. Child, here I come. The spirit tiger shouted and lunged towards the boy. Bang. He lunged forward at an extremely fast speed and was sent back even faster. Everyone was dumbfounded. The boy raised his hand slightly and punched the spirit tiger on the head in a flash. Before the spirit tiger could react, it was sent flying back and landed on the ground. It rolled a few times and its right cheek was swollen. Chapter 1171, Powerful Peach Blossom Tree. Chapter 1171, Powerful Peach Blossom Tree. This? Brother Tiger, you were careless, right? It should be. Otherwise, why would he be hit by a child? Shaking his head, the spirit tiger stood up and panted heavily, gradually regaining his senses. Little child, you've angered me. He glared at the boy not far away and said fiercely. The physical blow was secondary. The main thing was that he was punched right in the face by the child in front of Monkey and the others. That was way too embarrassing. Swash. The spirit tiger's figure flashed and his blood chi burst forth. Thunderbolts coiled around his body and he exuded a domineering aura unique to the tiger race. Roar. The spirit tiger roared at the boy. A strong wind howled. You're so noisy. The boy frowned, somewhat angry. Initially he wanted to teach the spirit tiger a lesson. However, he did not expect the latter to get up and even shout at him. That made him extremely displeased. Swash! The spirit tiger felt his vision blur and the boy had already vanished on the spot. So fast. The spirit tiger's heart sank and he did not have time to think. Waving his hand, he released thunderous might and struck forward. Bang! Before the spirit tiger's fist touched the boy's clothes, his face was severely injured once more. After a moment of dizziness, the spirit tiger realized that he was sent flying by another punch from the boy. When he got up from the ground, both his cheeks were swollen and his head was truly as swollen as a tiger's. This time round, Monkey and the others did not laugh. They had fought countless battles and had sharp eyes. Naturally, they could tell that although the boy looked innocent and cute, his combat strength was extremely terrifying. Within the same realm, there were not many demons that could defeat the spirit tiger. Even though the spirit tiger did not take on his true form and was not at his peak condition, the boy was still in human form as well. Interesting. Monkey smacked his lips with a hint of fighting spirit in his eyes. He loved fighting the most in his life. Back then, when he first met Suzimo, they stayed in that cave for half a year and fought almost every day. Now that he saw how strong the boy was, Monkey's hands were itching as well. Little child, I'll play with you. Monkey grinned and stamped his foot on the ground, scurrying over. A malevolent aura surged as he reached out with his furry palm and grabbed at the boy. As though he could tell that Monkey was not weak, the boy straightened his face and focused. Bang! 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 The boy clashed against Monkey 3 times consecutively without being disadvantaged. Monkey was initially holding back, worried that he would injure the boy. However, the two of them clashed repeatedly and Monkey's strength continued to increase. In the end, even after pushing it to his limits, he could not force the boy back. Furthermore, Monkey could vaguely sense that the child still had strength left. Monkey was fearless and delighted at the sight of his prey. He no longer held back and released all his strength to fight the boy. Whose child is this? He's already so amazing at such a young age? Ching was puzzled. Among the 7 of them, Monkey was ranked 3rd in terms of combat strength and could even fight against Dharma characteristic Tao lords. How was this child so powerful? 5th, what are you able to tell? Ching glanced sideways and asked. Night Spirit pondered for a moment before saying, Peach Blossom Wood is extremely powerful to begin with. In the primordial era, it was known as the Dragon Subduing Wood and the Ghost Terror Wood. Many races refer to it as the Immortal Wood. One could imagine how strong it was to be able to subdue dragons, ward off evil and exorcise ghosts. So amazing. Ching was secretly speechless. Cuckoo was puzzled and could not help but say, however, there are very few peach blossom trees that are sentient in the demon realm. Even if they are sentient, they are rarely able to cultivate to this realm, let alone possess such strong combat strength. That will depend on how the peach blossom tree became sentient, Night Spirit said. What do you mean by that? Ching and the others did not understand. Night Spirit explained, to put it simply, if the peach blossom tree is sentient after a long period of evolution and nurtured by the heaven and earth spirit chi, the power it can control will be limited. Or perhaps it was a coincidence that it gained sentience and entered the path of cultivation. That's normal as well. After pausing for a moment, Night Spirit continued, however, it's a different story if it gains sentience because its intellect was unlocked upon guidance by an expert. Expert? Ching and the others asked instinctively. Night Spirit said, for example, if an immortal were to guide this peach blossom tree and allow it to gain sentience, that would mean that the Tao legacy of this peach blossom tree comes from this immortal. Once it enters cultivation, its potential will be unimaginable. Ching and the others understood. There were many similar legends in Tianhuang mainland. It was said that immortals of the upper realm often cultivated on a green stone. Over time, the green stone gained sentience and intellect. Even the green stone became extremely powerful and invincible once it started cultivating. In that case, the person who guided this peach blossom tree to gain sentience has an extraordinary background. Ching speculated, could it be a grand or old demon? A grand demon was equivalent to a conjoint body mighty figure. Old demons were equivalent to Mahayana patriarchs. Just as everyone was discussing, a figure fell with a bang. In midair, the figure released his blood chi once more and barely controlled his body before landing on the ground and staggering 3 steps back. The one who was beaten back was Monkey. This time round, Ching Ching and the others were truly shocked. Even Monkey could not defeat this little boy. Night Spirit frowned slightly and murmured with a deep gaze, "The person who guided this peach blossom tree is probably much more terrifying than a Mahayana patriarch. Brother Monkey, don't worry. I'll help you." At the side, the spirit tiger rubbed his swollen face and was about to pounce forward furiously. "Get back here." Ching Ching chided, "You two men, aren't you ashamed to join forces against a child?" The spirit tiger blushed. He did not want to either, but he felt aggrieved. If news of him being beaten up by a child spread, he would not be able to survive in Howling Moon Mountain anymore. "Humph, you bunch of bad guys, come at me together. I'm not afraid." Right then the boy's childish voice sounded. Bloody hell. At that moment the spirit tiger could not take it anymore. Ignoring Ching Ching's obstruction, he charged forward and scolded, "You little brat, let's see how your grandpa tiger will deal with you. Count me in." The golden lion could not help but join in the fun. Monkey, the spirit tiger and golden lion lunged forward. Trap. The boy conjured hand seals with both hands and shouted softly. Suddenly, branches grew out of nowhere beneath the feet of Monkey and the other two and weaved into a cage, trapping them within. The three of them released their attacks one after another, but they could not charge out at all. Although the peach blossom tree branch looked as thick as an infant's arm, it was unusually tough and invulnerable. Roar. The spirit tiger and the golden lion reverted to their true forms. However, the golden lion was still unable to cut through the peach blossom tree branch with his claws. Relying on the 4 incomparably sharp tiger claws that he had fused with in the past, the spirit tiger managed to sever a few peach blossom tree branches. However, the tree branches were endless and filled the gaps rapidly. Monkey's condition was not much better. He summoned Imminent and broke a few branches. However, Imminent was entangled by the newly grown branches layer by layer and was completely entangled within. Humph. It was only then that the boy revealed a smug expression and waved his fist. "Bad guys, do you know how strong I am now?" Chapter 1172 Walloped for Nothing. Chapter 1172, Walloped for Nothing. Ching Ching and Koku exchanged glances, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Apart from his frightening combat strength, the boy looked like a naive and adorable child. In the cage made of peach blossom wood, the golden lion had already given up and laid down obediently. He finally understood that his strength was unnecessary. After the spirit tiger reverted to its true form, it roared in the cage and charged left and right, unable to get out despite being exhausted. The spirit tiger gave up as well. "Little child, you win," the spirit tiger said weakly. Monkey was motionless. He would never admit defeat. There was no such thing as admitting defeat in his bloodline. However, Monkey felt conflicted. Was he going to trigger the berserk power in his bloodline just because of this child? Once he went berserk, he would become extremely dangerous. Apart from his closest kin such as the spirit tiger and the others, he would recognize no one else. Irrational, the only thing on his mind would be to kill without any sense of propriety. Monkey was worried that he would injure the child in his berserk state. He could also tell that this child was kind-hearted and did not have the savage and vicious aura of other fiend demons. Instead, he had a scholarly aura. It was a familiar feeling. However, Monkey could not recall it at that moment. Yet, if he did not use the berserk power of his bloodline, he would truly be subdued by this child. After he obtained Imminent, even if he was severely injured, he had never lost his weapon. But now, even Imminent was entangled by the intertwining branches and was completely out of his control. This was unprecedented. He could not admit defeat. Monkey's eyes gradually turned bloodshot. When she saw that, Ching Ching frowned slightly with a worried expression. She was well aware of Monkey's bloodshot eyes and his berserk state. He was a terrifying existence that could not be controlled. Notwithstanding the increase in his speed and strength, Monkey would not even feel pain and his combat strength would increase exponentially. Ha! Just as Ching Ching was worried, the boy tilted his head and exclaimed softly, as though he had sensed something as well. "That's a little dangerous, eh?" The boy blinked and murmured. Although he had never fought Monkey in his berserk state before, he was extremely sharp and could already sense the danger. The boy pondered for a moment before changing his hand seal and channeling Dharmic powers into the cage. Suddenly, pink flower buds grew from the tree branches of the cage. Before long, all the flower buds bloomed under the watchful gazes of Ching Ching and the others. The peach blossoms were tender and beautiful, emitting a faint fragrance that refreshed the heart. Monkey felt his consciousness blur from the fragrance as his eyelids grew heavy and he felt drowsy. The blood light in his eyes gradually faded as well. After persisting for a moment, Monkey could not hold on and fell with a thud in the cage, snoring loudly. Ching was dumbfounded. That was possible? The boy was so smart that he did not fight Monkey head-on. Instead, he changed his tactics and prevented Monkey from releasing the berserk power. Of course, the fragrance of the peach blossom was also extraordinary since it could knock out Monkey. In that short period of time, Monkey, the spirit tiger and the golden lion were suppressed by a mere child. Ching pondered. Even if she and Cuckoo went up, nothing would change. They reigned supreme in Howling Moon Mountain and were invincible. Furthermore, they caused a huge ruckus at the North Region Dao meet. To think that they would lose to a child in front of this insignificant Pingyang town. If this child was already so strong, who knew what sort of a character the young master he mentioned was? Of course, they were not completely defeated either. At the very least, Night Spirit had not attacked yet. The moment that thought flashed through her mind, Ching suddenly realized that Night Spirit had disappeared unknowingly. She seemed to have thought of something as she raised her head and looked towards the boy. A figure appeared behind the boy silently like a ghost, staring at him expressionlessly. All of a sudden, Night Spirit attacked. The boy seemed to have sensed something and darted forward. Shing. The clothes on the boy's arm were still torn by Night Spirit's fingertip, revealing an arm that resembled a lotus root. His skin was tender and fair with a faint trace of blood on it. Night Spirit exclaimed softly with a bright gaze. Even most Dharma characteristic Tao lords could not dodge his attack. To think that the boy's senses would be so sharp. Of course, he still managed to injure the boy, although the wound was extremely shallow. The boy looked at the wound on his arm and felt aggrieved. His eyes were moist. He turned around and glared at Night Spirit angrily, raising a pair of small fists. "Bad guy, you've hurt me." The child was innocent and did not even know how to curse. Even though he was hurt by Night Spirit and was extremely aggrieved and furious, he could only address the latter as bad guy. In his heart, there were only 3 types of people in the world. Good people, bad people and his young master. Night Spirit smiled at the boy's rebuke and was not bothered. All of a sudden, he retracted its smile. His gaze landed on the boy's injured arm. In that short period of time, the wound on the boy's arm had disappeared without a single scar left behind. What strong regeneration capabilities! Night Spirit's heart skipped a beat. That regeneration capability was even comparable to his. Just as Night Spirit's mind was in a state of chaos, the boy charged forward and took a step forward. Leaning forward, he extended his arms from his abdomen and clenched his fists. His index finger protruded slightly as he thrust forward in a gentle motion. Moo! At the same time, a stream of air spewed out from the boy's mouth and nose, forming a strange dull sound. Instantly, the boy's figure seemed to vanish and was replaced by a terrifying bull demon with horns that pierced the skies. Night Spirit saw that this move seemed familiar and was filled with killing intent. He recognized its potency and did not take it head-on as he vanished in a flash. Without hesitation, the boy changed his stance and spun around. Protecting his chest with his left hand, he clenched his right fist and his flesh expanded, forming a gigantic seal that smashed towards his back. Bang! The 2 fists collided. Night Spirit's figure appeared. The boy's eyes lit up and he changed his stance once more. Opening his fist, it suddenly turned soft and landed on Night Spirit's palm with a coil and a tremble. Swoosh! The boy's palm landed in the void with a crisp sound. He missed. Stop fighting. Right then Monkey's voice sounded. The boy could not divert his attention to control the cage while battling Night Spirit. The spirit tiger and the golden lion woke up quickly. Monkey woke up as well. The moment he woke up, he saw the boy turn around and execute a move that he was most familiar with, Sanguine Ape Fist Seal. A thought flashed through Monkey's mind as he shouted hurriedly. The boy refused to stop and glared at Night Spirit angrily, shouting in a huff, "Bad guy, don't run." However, Night Spirit did not move. He recognized the origin of the moves that the child had used earlier on as well. Monkey looked at the child and asked in a deep voice, "Little child, is your young master's surname Su?" How did you know?" The boy was stunned and asked curiously with widened eyes. Ching and the others gradually understood as well. The spirit tiger had a glum expression as he rubbed his swollen cheek and grumbled, "Bloody hell, we've been fighting among ourselves the entire time. I got walloped for nothing." Chapter 1173 Life Imprint. Chapter 1173, Life Imprint. When Qing found out that the boy was related to Su Zimo, she was even happier. The more she looked at the boy, the more she liked him. "You deserve it." She saw the aggrieved look on the spirit tiger's face and could not help but laugh. "Who asked you to bully a child? Sister, have you ever seen such a ferocious child?" The spirit tiger rolled its eyes with a dark expression. Not only did the boy suppress the three of them, he was not disadvantaged even in a fight against Night Spirit. The golden lion exclaimed, "First is truly amazing. When did he nurture such a monster incarnate?" The boy was confused and could not help but ask, "You guys know my young master?" "More than that." Monkey grinned. "We're very close to your young master and are sworn siblings. Your young master is our big brother." "Is that so?" The boy tilted his head and blinked his eyes. His pitch-black eyes darted around in a skeptical manner. Qing asked curiously, "First didn't mention us to you?" When he heard that, a look of disappointment crossed the boy's face. Lowering his head slightly, he said in a soft voice, "No, the young master only spoke to me twice." "How is that possible?" The spirit tiger shook his head. "If First didn't talk much to you, how did you learn all these killing moves?" As he said that, the spirit tiger gestured twice. "Those moves?" The boy shook his head. "Young master didn't teach them to me." "He didn't?" Qing, the spirit tiger and the others exchanged glances. They could tell that the other party was confused. In their impression, Su Zimo was the only one who knew those killing moves. If it was not taught by Su Zimo, where did the boy learn it from? "First didn't teach you how to cultivate?" Qing asked again. The boy shook his head. "I've only seen the scene when young master broke through to the Golden Core realm. After I gained sentience, those moves and some Dharmic formulations for cultivation were already in my mind." "That's strange. If not for First, who else would know those moves?" The spirit tiger murmured. Monkey's heart skipped a beat as a figure in blood-colored robes appeared in his mind. "Her?" he murmured softly. Only Monkey knew that apart from Su Zimo, there was another person who knew those moves. In a night more than 100 years ago, this mysterious woman imparted to him a Dharmic formulation of the ape race before disappearing. Night Spirit once said that the stronger the origin of the peach blossom tree's sentience, the greater the potential of the boy. If that was the case, the mysterious woman was probably the one who helped the peach blossom tree gain sentience. No wonder this boy was frighteningly strong. So, he had inherited the legacy of that mysterious woman. Qing came to the boy's side and squatted down, asking with a smile, "How long has it been since you've seen your young master?" "More than 100 years. The boy counted with his fingers. "What did your young master tell you before he left?" Qing asked again. The boy replied in a serious manner, "He told me to protect the citizens of this place." "So, you've been guarding this place for more than 100 years?" A gentle look flashed through Qing's eyes. The boy nodded vigorously. "I've never left all these years. The citizens of Pingyang town have been living well too." "Yes, we saw that." Qing nodded. For some reason, everyone felt a sense of softness in their hearts when they saw the boy like that. Even the spirit tiger's resentment towards the boy vanished instantly. For the sake of a single sentence, this child shouldered the heavy responsibility of protecting his people and did not take a single step away. Just how many dangers and difficulties did he experience during this period of time? Previously, the North region experienced the calamity of the witch goo, but there were no signs of it happening here. It must be because of the protection of this boy. This child did not even know when the end would be. In fact, he didn't even know when he could see his young master again. All he remembered was that sentence left to him before his young master left. With that, he remained here for more than 100 years. The boy seemed to have let down his guard against Qing and the others as he continued, "Right, I'll also bear many peaches every year to distribute to the grannies and grandpas of the town. After consuming the peaches, they get to live for a long time." Everyone was enlightened. It was no wonder why they saw so many old people in Pingyang town. It was because of the protection of this child. "Seems like the legend about the peach blossom tree is true," Night Spirit said, Legend has it that some immortal peaches can extend one's lifespan by hundreds or even thousands of years after eating them. Of course, the boy was far from that level. The fruits he bore could only help the mortals extend their lifespans by dozens of years. There have been many bad guys like us over the years, right? Ching Ching asked with a smile. The boy nodded. Immediately after, he shook his head and blinked his clear eyes. He met Ching Ching's gaze and said, "You guys are not bad. Those bad guys are truly bad. Those bad guys wanted to snatch things because they were strong. They killed and bullied people everywhere. However, they were all beaten away by me." You beat them away. Everyone was surprised and the spirit tiger could not help but ask, "You didn't kill them?" In their minds, they believed that they had to be ruthless to their enemies and kill them all. There was no such thing as beating their enemies away. No. The boy shook his head. I don't know how to kill and I don't want to kill either. Every life is precious and I don't want to hurt them. To Monkey and the others, those words sounded extremely ridiculous. If they had that belief, they would not be able to survive in the cruel demon and cultivation world. However, Monkey and the others did not mock, ridicule or scoff at him. This child's heart was pure and kind. The world in his eyes was also beautiful and gentle. In his heart, every life was precious and worthy of respect. Monkey and the others did not want to and could not bear to break the beautiful world in the child's heart. This child was definitely an anomaly in Tianhuang mainland. He was so powerful, but he had never killed anyone before. Perhaps those with such beliefs would not be able to survive in this cruel world. However, they would protect this child. Su Zimo would protect this child. If possible, they did not want the child's hands to be stained with blood. Monkey and the others did not know that it was not a coincidence that the boy possessed such conviction. The origin of this peach blossom tree's sentience was Daiyu. However, in reality, apart from himself, there was another life imprint in the peach blossom tree, Jure Feng, who died in perfected being Tsang Lang's hands. That was Su Zimo's favorite mount in the past. Back then, Su Zimo buried Jure Feng's ashes under the peach blossom tree with immense sorrow. Daiyu witnessed everything. That was the reason why Jue Feng's remnant soul was fused into the peach blossom tree, granting it an immortal opportunity to gain sentience and impart Tao under the tree. Although the current boy was transformed from a peach blossom tree, he actually had the imprint of Jue Feng within his consciousness. Against the power of a golden core, Jue Feng was defenseless and deeply felt the helplessness and pain. That was the reason why the boy did not wish to harm any life in his consciousness. The imprint left behind by Jue Feng was also the reason why this boy, the manifestation of the peach blossom tree's sentience, relied and trusted Su Zimo so much. Chapter 1174, Center of Attention. Chapter 1174, Center of Attention. After the North Region Dao meet ended, the cultivation world of the North Region did not calm down at all. Desolate Marshal challenged Dao Being Xianyu to a duel in the old capital of Yan country on the 5th of April. Xianyu accepted the challenge. Before the battle even began, it was already the center of attention with a huge commotion. Firstly, both parties involved in the fight were extremely special. One of them was Dao Being Desolate Marshal, known as the #1 monster incarnate in history. The other was a glass palace cultivator, Dao Lord Xianyu. Both of them were famous. More importantly, this was a battle that had a major cultivation realm gap. This battle would definitely be a life and death battle as well, since neither side could afford to lose. For a period of time, the North region was in turmoil and countless sects and factions were paying attention to the battle, setting things into motion from behind the scenes. At the beginning of April, cultivators lingered around the old capital of Yan country. All the cultivators wanted to witness this unprecedented battle personally. I heard that the feud between Desolate Marshal and Xianyu was established more than 100 years ago. That's right. This place was originally flourishing and prosperous. It was because of Xianyu's orders that this capital was reduced to ruins. Some cultivators stood on the ruins of the old capital and discussed the matter. Who do you guys think will win this battle? It'll definitely be Dao Lord Xianyu. A cultivator analyzed. If it was an ordinary Dharma characteristic Dao Lord, Desolate Marshal would definitely have a high chance of winning. However, I heard that Dao Lord Xianyu is extremely strong and is ranked second among the Dharma characteristic Dao Lords of Glass Palace, second only to Dao Lord Glass. Dao Lord Glass was the titular disciple of Glass Palace. The reason why he was conferred the title of Tao Lord Glass was also because Su Zimo killed this generation's titular disciple of Glass Palace back in the Tao inheritance ground. More than 100 years ago, Xianyu was only a void reversion. Now that he's already at the Dharma characteristic realm, he's not someone easy to deal with. I believe that Tao Lord Xianyu will win as well. Not necessarily. Another cultivator shook his head. I heard that many Dharma characteristic Tao Lords died in the hands of desolate marshal at the North Region Tao meet. Over the past few days, the topic of discussion was the outcome of the battle. Look, the Glass Palace cultivators have appeared again. A cultivator pointed to the skies not far away and said, for the past few days, Glass Palace cultivators would descend to the vicinity of the old capital of Yen country almost every day to check things out. They're worried that desolate marshal might set up a trap in the ruins. A cultivator shook his head and pursed his lips. Glass Palace is being too petty. Since desolate marshal set up the challenge openly, why would he do something like that? As time passed, more and more cultivators gathered. Even the sect masters of the various upper sects and aristocratic families were here personally to watch the battle. The commotion was shocking and spectacular. The Empress of Great Zhou Jianghu led an army over personally. The old immortal crane of Ethereal Peak led her disciples to spectate as well. At the same time, outside the old capital of Yen country, a woman arrived. She had black hair like a waterfall and wore snow-white clothes. She was extremely beautiful with icy skin and jade bones. Her eyes were bright and charming and could be said to be devastatingly beautiful. The white-robed woman looked at the ruins in silence. Suddenly, a furry head popped out of the woman's embrace with a pair of tiny paws. Rubbing her drowsy eyes, she asked in a daze, "Are we here?" "Yes," the white-robed woman replied. The little beast seemed to be invigorated as it popped its head out and looked in the direction of the old capital of Yen country. It was a fiery red little fox. Goddess true Jade, wasn't I right? Young master hasn't forgotten about me. He's doing this to take revenge for me. The little fox said smugly. There's nothing praiseworthy about dragging it on for more than 100 years. The white-robed woman replied with a hint of disdain. Little Fox frowned slightly and argued, "This is already amazing of young master. He's a major cultivation realm away from Tao Lord Xianyu. Goddess true Jade, you seem to have some prejudice against young master?" The white-robed woman recalled the scene in the depths of the cave and felt flustered. Her cheeks flushed as she grit her teeth and did not continue. "No matter what, Goddess true Jade, I've won this bet." Little Fox replied happily, "Young master has never forgotten about me and will definitely protect me. Don't worry." The white-robed woman had a calm expression. "We'll talk about it after he wins this battle. A Dharma characteristic Tao Lord of Glass Palace isn't going to be so easy to deal with. If he loses, it'll mean that I was right. That person doesn't have the ability to protect you and you'll have to follow me from now on." In the palace of the old capital of Yen country. It was a day away from the 5th of April. Su Zimo was still cultivating in a dilapidated palace. He had been isolated from the outside world for the past few days and his cultivation realm had not changed. However, he was in no hurry. The more anxious one was, the more likely they would fall into a quagmire of cultivation and be unable to extricate themselves. Nian Qi stood at the entrance, guarding it day and night. Monkey and the others had arrived a few days ago as well. Among them there was a child wearing a white jacket. His eyes were black and he was extremely intelligent. Monkey and the others knew that Su Zimo was at a critical juncture of his cultivation breakthrough and did not barge in recklessly, waiting outside. The night before the final battle. Suddenly, two beams of light shone within the pitch-black palace. Those were Su Zimo's eyes. His aura rose continuously. Endless Dharmic powers surged into his body, forming vortexes that connected heaven and earth. After a long time, the trend gradually slowed down and stopped. He had broken through. Perfected void reversion realm. Su Zimo could clearly sense that his essence spirit had truly turned whole and full at that moment. There were no flaws at all on his body. Suddenly, an epiphany struck him. He seemed to have understood something and closed his eyes in deep thought. He only reopened his eyes once again at daybreak. When he tried to comprehend about the epiphany of the previous night, a smile finally appeared on his face. Sensing that Su Zimo was fine, Monkey and the others no longer waited and entered the palace. "You guys are back." Su Zimo swept his gaze across Monkey and the others and smiled. all of a sudden. His gaze paused and landed on a boy among Monkey and the others. The boy looked at him as well. Although the boy was trying his best to control himself, Su Zimo could see the excitement and joy in his eyes. The boy looked unfamiliar. Su Zimo could guarantee that he had never seen the boy before. However, for some reason he felt a sense of familiarity from the boy. He looked at the boy's pitch-black and intelligent eyes and shuddered as though he had suddenly thought of something. He finally knew where the sense of familiarity from the boy came from. That pair of eyes and that gaze were almost identical to Zhui Feng, who had accompanied him through his growth. At the same time, Su Zimo caught sight of the boy's true form. Instantly he understood many things. It was even more so for Tao Lord Xianyu. Even the surrounding cultivators felt a sense of pressure. It was hard to imagine how Su Zimo would feel facing him head-on. As expected of the second strongest Dharma characteristic of Glass Palace. To think that he could gather such might. The sect master of Stellar Luna sect lamented. As sect masters, they were Dharma characteristic Tao lords who had been famous for a long time. It had only been 100 years since Tao Lord Xianyu entered the Dharma characteristic realm. However, he had already surpassed many of the sect masters. As one of the immortal sects, Glass Palace naturally had its strengths. Blaze Columbus Valley's Valley Master said, "There shouldn't be any suspense in this battle after seeing Tao Lord Xianyu's capabilities. Desolate Marshal's trump cards have been completely exposed at the North Region Tao meet. Tao Lord Xianyu represents Glass Palace in this battle and he won't tolerate failure. He must have made thorough preparations." The sect master of Heavenly Piercing Sword sect said. The moment Tao Lord Xianyu appeared, even some cultivators who were initially confident in Su Zimo were shaken. His power was on a completely different level. Even some Dharma characteristic Tao lords present could not resist Tao Lord Xianyu's aura, let alone void reversions. However, unexpectedly, even when Tao Lord Xianyu was 100 feet away from Su Zimo, the latter was still indifferent and did not retreat at all. It was as though Su Zimo could not feel any pressure under such circumstances. How was that possible? Desolate Marshal, we meet again. Tao Lord Xianyu smiled gently. To be honest, I truly did not expect you to survive and grow to this point. Surprisingly, the meeting between the two of them was not as tense as everyone imagined it to be. Tao Lord Xianyu looked at Su Zimo with a relaxed expression without any killing intent. He continued, "I'm here to give you another choice. If you choose to join Glass Palace, the grudges between you and us can be written off. After joining Glass Palace, the other sects will no longer dare to cause trouble for you either." The moment he said that, the crowd stirred. Tao Lord Xianyu is here to express his goodwill on behalf of Glass Palace. Glass Palace seems to be very sincere. Entering Glass Palace is a win-win situation. Many cultivators discussed softly. As one of the 9 immortal sects, Glass Palace was a sacred cultivation ground that many cultivators yearned to join. Who wouldn't want to join? Only the sect masters of some upper sects and aristocratic families sneered internally when they heard that and thought to themselves that it was vicious. How many Glass Palace cultivators had been killed by Su Zimo in the past 100 years? Even the titular disciple of Glass Palace was killed in the Tao inheritance ground. How could they let bygones be bygones? The reason why Tao Lord Xianyu said that was not to gain Su Zimo's trust. However, as long as Su Zimo's heart wavered, he would have lost this battle. At the very least, many cultivators in the crowd were tempted. These sect masters had lived for thousands of years and they were extremely experienced. What sort of tricks had they not seen before? In fact, they were certain that as long as Su Zimo's mind fluctuated slightly, Tao Lord Xianyu would definitely seize the opportunity to strike. "Xianyu, you don't have to put in so much effort." Su Zimo's expression was mocking as he said coldly, "I challenged you here today to kill you. Even if you want to commit suicide, I won't allow it." He was not even allowed to commit suicide. Su Zimo wanted to kill him personally. The smile on Tao Lord Xianyu's face gradually disappeared. His expression was frighteningly dark and filled with killing intent, revealing a menacing expression. Su Zimo walked towards Tao Lord Xianyu with a burning gaze and said slowly, "I'm going to use your blood as a tribute to this land. I'll use it as a tribute to my older brother and the citizens of Yen country. It will be used as a tribute to appease the innocent souls of the 13 cities of Yen country 100 years ago." Each time he mentioned the word tribute, Su Zimo's aura would increase by a fraction. When the final word was stated, Su Zimo's aura was at his peak and he attacked brazenly. Chapter 1176, Battle of Dharmic Arts. Chapter 1176, Battle of Dharmic Arts. Su Zimo chanted Sanskrit and the damning mantra exploded. At the same time, Su Zimo changed his hand seals repeatedly and almost instantly, he conjured 3 offensive damning Dharmic seals. The Fiend Suppression Seal, Demon Subduing Seal and Immortal Trap Seal descended at the same time. Instantly the world changed and shook. At the end of the firmaments, Buddhist light shone through the clouds and illuminated the world. 3 gigantic golden palms that seemed corporeal crushed down towards Tao Lord Xianyu with the boundless might of heaven and earth. Without any probing, Su Zimo attacked with all his might. He had waited too long for this battle. More than 100 years ago, he was almost helpless against Tao Lord Xianyu. But now he was already standing opposite Tao Lord Xianyu. Is that the legendary lost secret skill of Daming Monastery? The combined power of the 3 Dharmic seals has already exceeded the limits of some Dharma characteristic Tao Lords. Desolate Martial is only at the Void Reversion realm. To think that his Dharmic powers would be so terrifying that they can summon the might of heaven and earth to create such a massive commotion. The 3 Dharmic seals descended and shone with a blinding golden light, causing the air to turn dry. Tao Lord Xianyu did not move at all as he looked at the golden palms that were crushing down. A look of disdain flashed through his eyes as he hollered softly, "Scarlet Rainbow Sacred Slash." A Dharmic art formed in Tao Lord Xianyu's palm. Following that, a scarlet light burst forth from his palm and shot out in all directions. It was as though a blazing sun was crushed by Tao Lord Xianyu. Poof, poof, poof. The scarlet beams collided with the golden palms and after a brief stalemate, the golden palms were corroded and penetrated. In the blink of an eye, the 3 gigantic sacred golden palms were riddled with holes and dimmed. How dare you use such petty tricks to embarrass yourself? Tao Lord Xianyu sneered. In reality, all the cultivators present knew that there was a major cultivation realm difference between them. The fact that Desolate Martial could fight Tao Lord Xianyu head-on without being disadvantaged proved the power of that Dharmic art. The sect master of Dragon Tiger sect said indifferently, "It's a pity that he has yet to master the Daming Dharmic Seal. I heard that the final 2 Dharmic seals of the Daming Dharmic Seal are the most powerful. However, they were lost tens of thousands of years ago. It's only normal that this lad doesn't know." The Valley Master of Blaze Columbus Valley said. The 2 Dharmic arts had yet to dissipate and the Dharmic powers in the void still possessed immense destructive power. However, Tao Lord Xianyu had a fearless expression. Relying on his powerful body, his figure flashed and he turned into a streak of light, speeding towards Su Zimo through the layers of Dharmic powers. Here he comes. He's trying to kill Tao being Desolate Martial in melee combat. The cultivators were shocked. Glass Palace was one of the strongest body-tempering super sects among the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sections. Legend has it that when the sect's secret skill, Glass Heart Sutra, was cultivated to its limits, one's body was comparable to Dharmic treasures and was indestructible, able to fight against pure-blooded ferocious beasts. Glass Palace was the strongest in physique and bloodline. Everyone knew that Desolate Martial's body was crippled by a half-martial ancestor 10 years ago. Although his reconstructed body displayed immense strength at the North Region Tao meet, he was most likely still slightly weaker than Tao Lord Xianyu. Su Zimo was also aware of this. Back then he was best at melee combat. Therefore he knew one thing best: if Tao Lord Xianyu closed in, his situation would become extremely dangerous and passive. Swish. Su Zimo's body flashed with lightning as a pair of gigantic wings grew on his back. He burst forth with speed and retreated rapidly, trying his best to distance himself. At the same time he conjured another Dharmic art. Bang, boom, boom. As his Dharmic art was formed, the skies were filled with dark clouds in the blink of an eye. It was frighteningly dark with flashes of lightning. Purple thunderstorm. He pointed forward. One after another, purple lightning descended onto the ground, tearing the void apart. Purple lightning coiled and formed a storm that connected the heavens and the earth that swept towards Tao Lord Xianyu. That was the power of a top-tier Dharmic art. It could cause the world to tremble and summon the wind and rain. Su Zimo's attacks had yet to stop. The seal in his hands changed once more and a gigantic thunderbolt formed in the middle of the dark clouds. A bedazzling sea of lightning appeared above Tao Lord Shan Yu's head and the endless power of thunder condensed into a single point that descended. The Fury of Thunder. Purple Thunderstorm, Fury of Thunder. All the top Dharmic arts of the Great Void Spirit Refinement section descended and almost drowned Tao Lord Shan Yu. The crowd was shocked. If they had not witnessed it personally, they would not have imagined that such a Dharmic art was released by a void reversion. Tao Lord Shan Yu chanted with a grim expression. Let the body be like glass, transparent inside out and cleansed of impurities, turning indestructible. Suddenly his body was shrouded by a mysterious glow. From head to toe he was flawless and indestructible like glass. Even in the sea of thunder, it was not shaken. Streaks of blazing lightning struck his glass-true body and dissipated instantly. Su Zimo's expression was cold and he was not surprised at all. He had never intended to severely injure Tao Lord Shan Yu with the purple thunderstorm and fury of thunder. His true killing move was hidden within the massive thunderbolt. Nobody noticed that there were dozens of inconspicuous green lotus seeds that resembled eternal sand floating in the resplendent sea of lightning. The lotus seeds shone brightly. However, it was covered by the blinding lightning. The creation green lotus seeds. Right after the arrival of the purple thunderstorm and fury of thunder, Su Zimo's eyes shone with a cold glint as he channeled his spirit consciousness and said softly, "Slash." The 54 green lotus seeds gathered rapidly and formed an exquisite and tiny green lotus sword in the sea of lightning. The green lotus sword emitted a terrifying aura that far surpassed the two thunder Dharmic arts. It was a killing sword that targeted the essence spirit. A single slash could sever the essence spirit. Even Tao Lord Shan Yu's glass-true body could not defend against it. The green lotus sword descended almost at the same time as the fury of thunder and slashed towards Tao Lord Shan Yu's head. Tao Lord Shan Yu, who was in the midst of the lightning, conjured his glass-true body to defend against the lightning. All of a sudden, he felt a strong sense of danger. It was as though he was about to face a calamity the next moment. How could that be? Tao Lord Shan Yu was puzzled. Although the power of those two thunder Dharmic arts was strong, he could definitely defend against them with his glass-true body. Why did he feel such trepidation? At his cultivation realm, he had an extremely keen sense of danger. It felt like a whim and he was definitely not imagining things. Without any time to think, Tao Lord Shan Yu made a prompt decision. With a thought, a black Dharmic weapon suddenly flew out from his consciousness and hovered above his head. Clang. At the same time, the sound of metal clashing could be heard. The green lotus sword struck the black Dharmic weapon heavily and released a terrifying spirit consciousness that suppressed the surrounding thunderbolts instantly. Fire-blocking basket. In the crowd, in the embrace of a white-robed woman, the little fox exclaimed with widened eyes. Chapter 1177, Forced into Melee Combat. Chapter 1177, Forced into Melee Combat. The black Dharmic weapon resembled an inverted metal bowl with mysterious patterns etched on it, revealing 9 holes. Su Zimo focused his gaze. That black Dharmic weapon was none other than the fire-blocking basket that Tao Lord Shan Yu snatched away from Little Fox more than 100 years ago. To think that the fire-blocking basket could defend against the attack of the green lotus sword. At that moment, the two Dharmic weapons collided and the green lotus sword dispersed, transforming into 54 green lotus seeds that returned to Su Zimo's consciousness. It was only at this moment that the crowd reacted and burst into a commotion. Desolate Marshal is way too ruthless. He released a killing move that targets the essence spirit right away. How dangerous. If Tao Lord Shan Yu was slightly slower, he might have been killed by a single slash. Tao Lord Shan Yu felt a sense of trepidation when he heard the discussions around him. His life was hanging by a thread just now. Tao Lord Shan Yu could not help but smile as he held the fire-blocking basket in his palm. Desolate Marshal, it's all thanks to this treasure that I was able to cultivate to this stage in more than 100 years. Su Zimo's heart stirred. Initially, he thought that the reason why Tao Lord Shan Yu could cultivate to the Dharma characteristic realm in such a short period of time was because of some fortuitous encounter. So, it was because of the fire-blocking basket. Unsurprisingly, that treasure should belong to Consort Yu. As such, it was not surprising for it to possess such power. I remember that this treasure was snatched from a fox, right? Tao Lord Shan Yu could not conceal the smugness in his eyes and was still reminiscing as he laughed. To think that this fire-blocking basket is actually a rare utmost treasure. Ah. In the crowd, Little Fox gripped her paws tightly and glared at Tao Lord Xianyu angrily, wishing that she could kill this person with her gaze. Goddess True Jade, look at his face. How infuriating. Little Fox rolled her eyes. Goddess True Jade, he's the one who bullied me. Why don't you help me retrieve the fire-blocking basket? The white-robed woman seemed to have read Little Fox's mind as she said with a fake smile, You want me to help this young Master Su, right? No. Feeling a little guilty, Little Fox whispered, I just wanted to retrieve the fire-blocking basket as soon as possible. Didn't you make a bet with me that young Master Su would help you get it back? In that case, I'd better not interfere and wait here to see the outcome, the white-robed woman said indifferently. Little Fox pouted and did not say anything more. What an opportune moment to let you have a taste of this fire-blocking basket's power today. On the battlefield, Tao Lord Xianyu charged towards Su Zimo once more and threw the fire-blocking basket in his hands towards the latter. Go! Tao Lord Xianyu hollered and Dharmic powers burst forth from his fingertip, entering the fire-blocking basket. Swoosh! The fire-blocking basket expanded against the wind and spun, arriving above Su Zimo's head almost instantly. Su Zimo's expression froze. The fire-blocking basket belonged to Consort Yu and he did not dare to let it envelop him. Slapping his storage bag, Su Zimo took out a grayish-black mountain. It was the ancient unique treasure, the Mystic Magnet Mountain. He wanted to make use of the power of the Mystic Magnet Mountain to restrain the fire-blocking basket. However, after the Mystic Magnet Mountain descended, the fire-blocking basket did not budge at all. Not good. Su Zimo's heart sank. The fire-blocking basket was made of metal. However, there were some rare metal materials in Tianhuang mainland that were not attracted by the magnetism at all. In other words, the Mystic Magnet Mountain was useless against the fire-blocking basket. In a fight of this level, a single mistake in judgment could cause one to fall into a disadvantageous position or even die. A huge shadow loomed over. The center of the fire-blocking basket exuded a strong suction force, forming a domain that Su Zimo could not break free from. However, Tao Lord Xianyu had already seized the opportunity to close in. Instantly, the situation reversed. Su Zimo was in immense danger. Your Highness, hurry and attack. Little Fox was anxious and urged hurriedly, just retrieve the fire-blocking basket and leave the rest to young Master Su. The white-robed woman was unmoved and shook her head. The loss of the fire-blocking basket was caused by him to begin with. It's only right that he retrieves it personally. Furthermore, he's the one who challenged Xianyu. Why should I interfere? If he can't even get through this, how will he protect you in the future? Go. Right then, a soft shout sounded from the battlefield. A green lotus platform flew out of Su Zimo's sea of consciousness with 6 petals blossoming. Multicolored light filled the air as it smashed towards the fire-blocking basket. The creation green lotus. The 2 Dharmic weapons collided with a loud bang. The fire-blocking basket wanted to envelop him, but the creation lotus platform was beneath it, blocking the fire-blocking basket. For a moment, the 2 Dharmic weapons were evenly matched. However, that delay was enough for Tao Lord Xianyu to arrive before him. His blood chi surged as he threw a punch that shone brightly with an incomparably violent aura. Su Zimo could only counter with a punch. Bang! The 2 fists collided. The collision between flesh and bones gave off a jarring sound. Tao Lord Xianyu's blood chi was clearly much stronger and suppressed Su Zimo completely. Ugh! Su Zimo grunted and took half a step back. Tao Lord Xianyu strode forward and pushed his hands forward from his chest. As though he was hugging a gigantic mountain, he descended and shouted, Mountain-hugging fist. A terrifying power arrived with a mountain. At that moment all techniques were useless. Su Zimo raised his arms and blocked. Boom. His body shuddered and a berserk power surged into his body. His organs vibrated and his blood chi surged as his teeth ached. His figure was sent flying. In the end, he was still forced into melee combat. After reconstruction, Desolate Marshal's body is still a little weak. If Tao Lord Xianyu finds an opening, he'll probably be beaten to death. That's right. Given Tao Lord Xianyu's combat strength, he won't give Desolate Marshal any chance to retaliate. The cultivators discussed when they saw that. In reality, it was not because the Green Lotus true body was not strong enough. After obtaining the nourishment of the primordial divine spring, the Green Lotus true body was already rather powerful and could suppress those of the same cultivation realm. If Tao Lord Xianyu was at the Void Reversion realm, Su Zimo had absolute confidence that he would be able to fight him head-on with his Green Lotus true body. However, the bloodline of the Green Lotus true body was relatively ordinary. Now that he had encountered Tao Lord Xianyu who was at the Dharma characteristic realm, the difference in their strength was naturally much greater. However, even though he was disadvantaged, there was no hint of panic on Su Zimo's face. The lotus stem was the bone and the lotus leaves were the skin. Coupled with the fact that he had fused many ancient Dharmic weapons, it would not be easy for Tao Lord Xianyu to severely injure his Green Lotus true body. Su Zimo was still waiting for an opportunity. Tao Lord Xianyu strode forward like a leech, not giving Su Zimo any chance to distance himself. 1,000-ton finger. Tao Lord Xianyu released another terrifying melee technique. His finger was filled with blood chi and light swirled around it as it smashed towards Su Zimo. How was that a finger? It was like a divine column that pierced through the firmaments. How could a body of flesh and blood withstand that power? However, right then, a warning flashed through Su Zimo's mind as he narrowed his eyes. There was danger. It was even more terrifying than the 1,000-ton finger. Chapter 1178, Counterattack. Chapter 1178, Counterattack. A mysterious light suddenly appeared in Tao Lord Xianyu's eyes, resembling two sparkling gems that were even brighter than the stars in the night sky. Glass Eye. It was the legacy visual technique of Glass Palace. That visual technique was extremely powerful and Su Zimo had witnessed it back in the Tao inheritance ground when he fought Tao being glass. At that time, the illumination stone was hidden in his right eye and he had to release the illumination sword formation to break Glass Eye. But now the illumination stone was in his dragon true body. Although the Green Lotus true body had also cultivated an eye technique of the Fiend sects, the heavenly Fiend eye focused on bewitching one's mind and did not release such pure power. The light emitted by Glass Eye was extremely terrifying. Even Tao Lord Dharmic weapons could be corroded and turned into scrap metal. If Su Zimo were to use his heavenly Fiend eye to defend, his eyes would be blinded. Glass Eye and 1,000-ton finger exploded at the same time and pushed him into the most dangerous situation. Visual techniques were instantaneous. Coupled with the fact that the two of them were extremely close, it was impossible to defend against. Furthermore, Tao Lord Xianyu's cultivation was a major realm higher than Su Zimo's to begin with. Su Zimo had a calm expression. Against the incoming 1,000-ton finger that resembled a heaven-connecting divine column, Su Zimo made a prompt decision and extended his left hand to defend. At the same time he closed two fingers on his right hand and conjured a sword art. He raised his sword finger vertically and slashed forward 3 times. Heaven-slaying sword art. The 3 heaven-slaying sword chi burst forth at the same time and clashed against the brilliance of Glass Eye. They went against the momentum and slashed towards Tao Lord Xianyu's face. 3 blinding sword chi burst forth. Tao Lord Xianyu felt his vision turn white as his expression changed. Boom. The first sword chi collided with Glass Eye and exploded. The sword chi dispersed and Glass Eye also shattered instantly. Immediately after, a second and third sword chi descended with endless killing intent. This was almost Su Zimo's strongest killing technique. 3 heaven-slaying sword chi was the limit that he could release right now. The fact that the two of them were extremely close meant that Tao Lord Xianyu had no room to dodge. Even a single sword chi could slice his head into 2, let alone 2 sword chi. In a flash, Tao Lord Xianyu flipped his tongue and spat out an ancient mirror the size of a fingernail to defend himself. At the same time, he bit his tongue and a stream of blood essence fell onto the ancient mirror. The ancient mirror expanded rapidly and shone with Dharmic patterns. A perfect Tao Lord Dharmic weapon. The moment the ancient mirror descended, the other 2 heaven-slaying sword chi slashed down as well. Clang. The first sword chi entered the ancient mirror and vanished. The ancient mirror shook. Tao Lord Xianyu's pupils constricted. He could clearly see fine cracks appearing on the back of the ancient mirror. That was a perfect Tao Lord Dharmic weapon. However, a Dharmic art released by a void reversion cracked it. Clang. The third sword chi descended and entered the ancient mirror. Instantly it came to a halt as though the world had stopped. The next moment the ancient mirror exploded. The perfect Tao Lord Dharmic weapon was shattered by 2 sword chi. Countless shards flew as Tao Lord Xianyu stood behind the ancient mirror. Many shards surged towards him and struck him. As though he was severely injured, Tao Lord Xianyu fell heavily into the ruins. At the same time on the other side, the 1,000-ton finger had already collided with Su Zimo's left palm. Bang! Su Zimo's body shuddered as a terrifying and berserk power surged into his body, causing his bones to tremble. Streaks of blood appeared on the flesh of his left arm and his sleeves exploded instantly. His figure fell from midair as well. Just as he was about to fall to the ground, he steadied himself and stood on the ruins. If not for the nourishment of the primordial divine spring beneath the 10,000 insect swamp, his green lotus true body would have been severely injured from the collision. Right now he was only slightly injured. Compared to Su Zimo, Dao Lord Xianyu looked much more miserable. Dao Lord Xianyu crawled up slowly from the ruins as well. He was covered in dust and his face was pierced by many mirror shards, dripping with blood. He looked extremely hideous. Under countless gazes, Dao Lord Xianyu channeled his blood qi and the muscles on his face twitched. The shards that were initially pierced into his face withdrew bit by bit under the pressure of his muscles and bloodline and fell off his face. In the blink of an eye, there was not a single fragment on his face, only wounds. Such strong muscle control was an eye-opener for everyone. This was the symbol of one's body and bloodline reaching their limits. Although the fight between the two of them was short, they were using killing moves repeatedly. The slightest mistake could result in death. Look! A cultivator pointed at the two Dharmic weapons in midair, the fire-blocking basket and the creation lotus platform. All the cultivators looked over. In midair, the two Dharmic weapons were still fighting, devouring each other with brilliant lights. This is way too scary. Even in such a high-intensity and continuous fight, the two of them are still able to divert their attention to control their Dharmic weapons. The battle between the fire-blocking basket and the creation lotus platform would affect the entire situation as well. Neither of them dared to relax. Desolate Marshal, you must be very disappointed that those three sword chi failed to kill me, right? Suddenly Dao Lord Xianyu laughed. Su Zimo's expression was cold and he remained silent. He was indeed surprised that the three heaven-slaying sword chi could not kill Xianyu at such a close distance. However, he was not really disappointed. When Dao Lord Xianyu saw that Su Zimo was silent, he thought that he had guessed correctly. He walked forward slowly and shook his head. Desolate Marshal, you've lost. The moment you revealed all your trump cards at the North Region Dao meet, you were already defeated. In order to deal with your trump cards, I was prepared. How are you going to win? Su Zimo was unmoved and merely sneered, Xianyu, I've got too many killing moves. Let's see how many you can take. Before he finished his sentence, Su Zimo touched his glabella gently and his consciousness opened. Right on the heels of that, he yanked his palm outwards and a long whip that shone with electric arcs appeared in his consciousness. Spirit Vanquishing Whip. When the Spirit Vanquishing Whip descended, the essence spirits of the surrounding cultivators felt a throbbing sensation. If I'm not wrong, that is an ancient essence spirit secret skill. To think that this lad would obtain it and cultivate it successfully. Gasp. The power of Desolate Marshal's essence spirit has probably surpassed most Dharma characteristic Dao Lords. How did that lad cultivate his essence spirit? The appearance of the Spirit Vanquishing Whip caused the hearts of many upper sect masters and aristocratic family leaders present to skip a beat. Even they were wary of the Spirit Vanquishing Whip and would not dare to take it head-on. He really can't be allowed to continue growing. Once that lad enters the Dharma characteristic realm, all the upper sects and aristocratic families of the North region will probably have to bow down to him. The sect master of Dragon Tiger sect thought to himself. Chapter 1179 Rainbow Glass Body. Chapter 1179 Rainbow Glass Body. Crack. Su Zimo waved the Spirit Vanquishing Whip and whipped towards Dao Lord Xianyu viciously. Dao Lord Xianyu did not stop and continued sprinting towards Su Zimo, wanting to close the distance and engage in melee combat with the latter. Piak. The Spirit Vanquishing Whip struck Dao Lord Xianyu viciously. Ugh. Dao Lord Xianyu grunted and paused for a moment. His muscles trembled and spasmed. The might of the Spirit Vanquishing Whip was even more terrifying than he had imagined. He knew that this was a secret skill that targeted the essence spirit. Therefore, within his consciousness, a gigantic spirit consciousness shield had long formed around his essence spirit. He wanted to withstand the whipping of the Spirit Vanquishing Whip and make use of the chance to close into Su Zimo. However, his spirit consciousness shield was almost destroyed by the Spirit Vanquishing Whip. At this rate, his spirit consciousness shield would be destroyed by the spirit vanquishing whip before he could even get close to Su Zimo. A fight between essence spirits was way too dangerous. Dao Lord Xianyu still wanted to drag Su Zimo into melee combat and crush him to death with his powerful body and bloodline. However, it was a pity that Su Zimo would not give him the chance to do so again. He summoned the spirit vanquishing whip and waved it from afar. In the void, thunder and lightning blazed and destroyed the world. An essence spirit fight? I'm not afraid of that either. When he saw that he could not get close, Dao Lord Xianyu roared with a ferocious expression and released his essence spirit secret skill without hesitation. Whoosh! A bedazzling rainbow light shone from Dao Lord Xianyu's glabella. A seven-colored divine light burst forth and smashed towards the spirit vanquishing whip. The two essence spirit secret skills clashed head-on. There was no earth-shaking sound. Everything was silent. However, the void where the two essence spirit secret skills collided was collapsing, twisting and trembling continuously. Terrifying spirit consciousness fluctuations spread out suddenly, forming a visible ripple that spread in all directions. The cultivators were shocked. The cultivators at the front retreated one after another, afraid that they would be affected by the spirit consciousness ripples. When the two essence spirit secret skills collided, the shockwaves produced were shocking and were enough to kill all void reversions present. The spirit vanquishing whip dissipated along with the seven-colored divine light. Both Su Zimo and Dao Lord Xianyu's essence spirits were shaken and their faces turned pale. Ha 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 ha. Dao Lord Xianyu closed in once more and laughed. Desolate Marshal, what other killing moves do you have? Use them and let me broaden my horizons. In reality, Su Zimo had another essence spirit secret skill under his belt. The Rulai Dharmic seal of the Buddhist monasteries. However, that essence spirit secret skill had a huge toll on his essence spirit. Now that he had released Dharmic arts and secret skills consecutively, his essence spirit was greatly drained. If he could not kill Dao Lord Xianyu after releasing the secret skill, he might die of exhaustion. Before he could think further, Dao Lord Xianyu had already closed in once more. Swoosh! Su Zimo's eyes lit up as he changed his hand seals repeatedly. 3 balls of flames suddenly appeared beside him. Scarlet, Immortal Dao Fire. Golden Buddhist Dao Fire. Black Fiend Dao Fire. The 3 balls of flames burned fiercely as though they would never extinguish. The temperature of the ruins rose suddenly. Normally, every single Dao Fire was extremely terrifying. However, Dao Lord Xianyu seemed as though he could not sense it at all. He strode forward and released his blood qi, extending his palm to suppress Su Zimo. Dao Lord Xianyu's body was way too strong. The 3 Dao Fires could not harm him at all. Under the envelopment of his blood qi, the 3 Dao Fires even showed signs of extinguishing. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged as a cold glint flashed in his eyes and his hand seals changed once more. Under his guidance, the 3 Dao Fires collided and formed a tricolored flame. Dao Lord Xianyu's expression finally changed. When the 3 balls of flames were separated, he did not feel anything. There was only a slight burning pain on his skin that was endurable. However, after the tricolored flame descended, even the hair on his skin began to burn. Right then, Su Zimo touched his glabella gently and condensed another essence spirit fire, injecting it into the tricolored flames. He said coldly, "Burn." The Counterattack Dao fire descended. The temperature of the entire Yen country's old capital was rising. The ruins, buildings and dilapidated walls around them had already begun to melt, forming fiery red lava that flowed slowly. At that distance, Dao Lord Xianyu could not dodge at all and was engulfed by Counterattack Dao fire as flames surged into the heavens. The surrounding cultivators retreated once more away from the battlefield. It's that flame. Back in the Dao inheritance ground, Dean died to that 4-colored flame. What a terrifying flame. It's practically burning the skies and boiling the seas. To think that the battle would reach this point. Is Dao Lord Xianyu done for? All the cultivators stared at the battlefield with excited expressions. On the battlefield, the human-shaped fireball was motionless, as though it was burned to death. However, the upper sect masters and aristocratic family leaders present could sense faint life fluctuations within the flames. Dao Lord Xianyu was not dead yet. Not only was he not dead, his spirit consciousness was still controlling the fire-blocking basket and restraining the creation lotus platform. Is this your final trump card? Suddenly, Tao Lord Xian Yu's voice echoed from the flames with a cold killing intent. He didn't die. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes. No matter how strong the glass true body was, there was no way it could withstand the burning of the Cultivation Dao fire. Desolate Marshal, I've already said that you can't beat me. The human-shaped fireball suddenly moved. Under the illumination of the flames, Tao Lord Xian Yu's figure was revealed once more. His hair and flesh were charred. However, there was a terrifying power within his body that was resisting the corrosion of the Cultivation Dao fire. Let me tell you right now, all your methods are nothing before me. Tao Lord Xian Yu roared as the power within his body burst forth with an extremely terrifying aura. A phantom shot into the skies and the entire world trembled. It's a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. A series of exclamations broke out from the crowd. The cultivators looked up instinctively. 30 feet. 50 feet. 80 feet. The heaven and earth Dharma characteristic only stopped when it reached a height of 80 feet. But the cultivators were shocked. The higher the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, the stronger it was. Generally speaking, anyone who could conjure a 60 feet tall Dharma characteristic was already considered a paragon. Most of the upper sect masters and aristocratic family leaders present merely had 60 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. If one could condense a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that was 70 feet tall, they would be a peerless paragon that appeared once in 1,000 years. Boundless opportunities and massive fortunes were required for one of these paragons to be born. One could be considered as a monster incarnate if they could condense a 80 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. Only the immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sects could produce such a monster incarnate. As expected of a glass palace cultivator, how terrifying. All the number one of the previous Dharma characteristic rankings merely had heaven and earth Dharma characteristics in the 80 feet range as well. The heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that was a full 80 feet tall had a torrential aura. Looking down from above, it was as though a god had descended from the heavens, unexcelled in the world. In the face of this heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, the cultivators below were as insignificant as ants. 1, 2, 3, 7 divine lights. The sect master of Dragon Tiger sect counted and said in a deep voice, "This is the Glass Palace's legacy Dharma characteristic, Glass Dharma body. When cultivated to its peak, it will become the rainbow glass body that we're seeing right now. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Chapter 1180, I have it too. Chapter 1180, I have it too. The body of the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was surrounded by a series of divine lights with 7 colors in total. They were dazzling and could not be looked at directly. His Dharma characteristic was corporeal and its body was as described in the Glass Heart Sutra. It was clear and flawless, emitting a terrifying aura. The Cultivation Dao fire continued burning without extinguishing. However, the rainbow glass body roared and divine light burst forth. Waving its hands, it channeled the power of heaven and earth and suppressed the Cultivation Dao fire instantly. Boom. The rainbow glass body raised its leg and stomped down heavily, extinguishing the Cultivation Dao fire beneath its feet. In front of the 80 feet tall rainbow glass body, even the upper sect masters and aristocratic family leaders present would have to bow their heads, let alone Su Zimo. The 80 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was probably something that only the titular disciples of the super sects could suppress. Seems like this battle is over. Fufu, it's not easy to fight with a major cultivation realm difference. Furthermore, he is challenging a glass palace cultivator. Desolate Marshal has to pay for his insolence. When they saw that, everyone had different reactions. Some sighed, some felt pity, some sneered, and some were worried. Brother? Xiaoning was anxious and worried, but there was nothing she could do. The old immortal crane frowned as well and murmured, Zimo is going to lose. Oh? He managed to cultivate a rainbow glass body that's 80 feet tall? The white-robed woman raised her brows and her lips curled into a perfect arc as she teased, Foxy, your young Master Su is going to be in trouble. Little Fox was so anxious that she was about to cry. Goddess True Jade, you'll definitely help, right? Why should I help him? The white-robed woman pursed her lips in disdain. Your Highness, please save him. Little Fox grabbed the front of the white-robed woman and cried, I'll leave with you from now on, all right? I don't want to see anything happen to young Master. He saw something that he shouldn't have. What's wrong with him suffering? The white-robed woman harumphed, still brooding over the events in the cave. However, Little Fox was confused and did not know what she meant by him seeing something he shouldn't have. Ha, desolate marshal, what other tricks do you have up your sleeves? Dao Lord Xianyu laughed maniacally and strode forward with his rainbow glass body. Clenching it into a fist, he punched towards Su Zimo. The punch was no less terrifying than a meteor crashing down. The entire void was trembling. Pa! Su Zimo chanted Sanskrit and conjured an immovable foundation seal in his hands. He looked dignified and his body shone with a golden light, as though he had taken root beneath his feet and was about to become a Buddha. Boom! The fist of the rainbow glass body collided heavily against Su Zimo's body. Compared to that gigantic fist, Su Zimo was like a tiny pebble that was smashed into the ground. The immovable foundation seal could not defend against the power of the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. In the face of that terrifying power, the roots that grew beneath his feet were already completely severed. Bang! 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 The immense power did not stop. Su Zimo's figure rolled backwards in the mud, creating a frightening human-shaped ravine dozens of feet long on the ground. The world was silent. Even the sound of wind was gone. Every cultivator could not conceal the shock on their faces. This was the burst power of the 80 feet tall rainbow glass body, who could defend against it. Not to mention void reversions, even Dharma characteristic Tao Lords would have been turned into a blood mist from that strike. Su Zimo laid in the mud motionlessly. He should be dead, right? With such terrifying strength, even a Tao Lord Dharmic weapon would be shattered, let alone a body of flesh and blood. Something's not right. Look, the Creation Lotus platform is still fighting against the fire-blocking basket. He's not dead yet and he can even split his attention to control his Dharmic weapon. Disbelief filled the eyes of the cultivators. He's probably not dead but won't last long either. That's right. The difference in strength between the two of them is way too great. They're on completely different levels. Everyone shook their heads. The old immortal crane was anxious. Although she was a Dharma characteristic expert, she could not defend against the 80 feet tall rainbow glass body either. She would probably be severely injured with a single strike. Furthermore, the sect masters of the upper sects and aristocratic families were watching the battle right now. If she made any sudden movements, she would be targeted. First condition doesn't seem too good. Ching Ching whispered. What should we do? The spirit tiger looked at Monkey and asked softly, Brother Monkey, what do you think? Let's kill? Monkey gripped Imminent in his hands tightly as a blood glint flashed through his eyes. Gritting his teeth, he said, I don't care anymore. I can't just watch my brother get killed. The current situation would affect everything. The moment they made a move, they would definitely attract the attacks of all the upper sects and aristocratic families. Even without any other sects or factions, that rainbow glass body alone was enough to deal with them all. You guys retreat first. Night Spirit's expression was calm as a resolute look flashed through its eyes. I'll save first. He was already prepared. Even if he had to expose his true form and be suppressed by Tao Lord Xianyu's Dharma characteristic, he had to save Su Zimo. After he transformed into his true form, his combat strength would increase exponentially. At the very least, he would have a 30% chance of escaping together with Su Zimo. Goddess True Jade, aren't you going to do anything yet? Little Fox was no longer pleading. Instead, she was a little angry and glared at the white-robed woman. Even without Little Fox's urging, the white-robed woman was prepared to make a move. She merely wanted Su Zimo to suffer a little, but she had not thought about letting the latter die here. Just as she was about to take a step forward, she frowned slightly and exclaimed softly when her gaze landed on Su Zimo, who was sprawled in the ruins. Immediately after, her eyes lit up as though she sensed something. Could it be? The white-robed woman murmured softly. Little Fox asked, Goddess True Jade, why aren't you moving again? Let's wait and see. The white-robed woman shook her head. On the battlefield. Tao Lord Xianyu also noticed the two Dharmic weapons that were still fighting in midair and could not help but sneer. Desolate marshal, let's see how long more you can last against my rainbow glass body. Cough cough cough. Right then, Su Zimo moved and crawled up from the ruins slowly. He spat out a few mouthfuls of blood and looked pale. Suddenly he smiled. The cultivators were stunned. They truly could not understand how Su Zimo could still smile under such circumstances. Is the rainbow glass body your final trump card? Su Zimo asked faintly. What are you trying to say? Suddenly Dao Lord Xian Yu felt flustered and hollered. Su Zimo's gaze was sinister as a terrifying aura emanated from his body. He said slowly, what I want to say is, that thing you have? I have it too. Boom. A pitch-black phantom burst forth from Su Zimo's body and soared into the skies. Demonic chi coiled around his body and rose continuously. Pust. The cultivators gasped in shock and their eyes widened. A heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. This scene had completely exceeded their understanding. How was that possible? How could a void reversion condense a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic? 10 feet. 20 feet. 50 feet. After 50 feet, the figure of the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic continued climbing without stopping. The cultivators looked up with their mouths agape. Could it be 60 feet? 70 feet? 80 feet? Another 80 feet tall Dharma characteristic descended. Chapter 1181 Heavenly Fiend Dharma Body. Chapter 1181 Heavenly Fiend Dharma Body. If one were to say that Dao Lord Xian Yu's rainbow glass body gave everyone a surprise, the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic formed by Su Zimo gave everyone an incomparable shock. This was something that no one had expected. It had also surpassed everyone's understanding. How could a void reversion form a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic? What was even more frightening was that the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was 80 feet tall and was comparable to Dao Lord Xian Yu's rainbow glass body. Two heaven and earth Dharma characteristics that were 80 feet tall stood in confrontation on the ruins with torrential auras that looked down on the world. How is that possible? Even the sect master of Mystic Firmament Divine Cult was tongue-tied and could not speak properly with a shocked expression. The heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that he cultivated was only 69 feet. It fell short of 70 feet. However, the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic of the void reversion before him was already 80 feet tall. This is way too scary. The sect master of Stellar Luna sect said in a deep voice, this lad is only at the void reversion realm. If he enters the Dharma characteristic realm, how far can his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic grow? Normally, cultivators would be able to condense heaven and earth Dharma characteristics upon entering the Dharma characteristic realm. However, the height of the Dharma characteristic at that time would not be the final height. As a cultivator's cultivation realm increased, their Dharma characteristic would grow as well. Of course, the taller the initial Dharma characteristic, the greater the potential and the stronger it would be at its peak. 90 feet supreme. The sect master of Dragon Tiger sect said in a low voice with a quivering heart, this lad has already formed an 80 feet tall Dharma characteristic at the void reversion realm. This Dharma characteristic will definitely grow into a supreme Dharma characteristic. A 90 feet Dharma characteristic was known as a supreme Dharma characteristic. All these years, none of the upper sect masters and aristocratic family leaders of the North region had seen anyone who could condense a Dharma characteristic. To them, the supreme Dharma characteristic was merely a legend. It was only a sight possible back in the ancient era where multiple emperors rose and monster incarnates reigned. However, at this moment, no one questioned the Dragon Tiger sect master's speculation. All the sect masters believed that if Desolate Marshal was allowed to continue growing, he would definitely be able to attain a supreme Dharma characteristic when he reaches the perfected Dharma characteristic realm. In reality, Su Zimo had only comprehended the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic after he advanced to the perfected void reversion realm. The so-called heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was the combination of all Dharmic arts. By using one's essence spirit to communicate with the heaven and earth, one could summarize the essence of Tao Dharmic arts and create the strongest Dharmic art. Normally, there were two reasons why Dharma characteristic could only be formed after one reached the Dharma characteristic realm. First, the strength of his essence spirit. If one's essence spirit was not strong enough, it would shatter before a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic could even be formed. However, although Su Zimo was at the void reversion realm, his essence spirit was already much stronger than most Dharma characteristic Tao Lords. This was not a factor that would affect him at all. Second, only by entering the Dharma characteristic realm would one be able to better comprehend the heaven and earth and communicate with it, summarize the Tao and Dharmic arts they had learned, combine all Dharmic arts and form Dharma characteristics. Su Zimo could not meet that requirement either. However, due to a freak combination of circumstances in the Dao inheritance ground, his memories fused the Dao comprehension of a half-martial ancestor of the Fiend sects. The half-martial ancestor of the Fiend sects had long condensed a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. Su Zimo had already experienced the union of all Dharmic arts, and there was no need for him to continue comprehending and deducing. Therefore, his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was formed based on the memories of the half-martial ancestor of the Fiend sects. Naturally, this heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was also the condensation of the essence of the Fiend sects. This Dharma characteristic of the Fiend sects was 80 feet tall and wore black armor. It was shrouded in demonic chi and wielded a gigantic pitch-black scythe with a chilling intent. What Dharma characteristic is that? To think that it can stand against the rainbow glass body. What a strong Fiend chi. To think that desolate Martial's cultivation in the Fiend Dao would be so accomplished. He's probably comparable to titular disciples of the Fiend sects. None of the cultivators present could recognize the origin of the Dharma characteristic. Only the white-robed woman's expression changed as she murmured softly, "It's the long-lost heavenly Fiend Dharma body. Furthermore, it's formed together with the heavenly Fiend scythe." Is the heavenly Fiend Dharma body very powerful? Little Fox could not help but ask. The white-robed woman said, "That's one of the strongest heaven and earth Dharma characteristics of the Fiend sections. The rainbow glass body probably doesn't stand a chance against the heavenly Fiend Dharma body." You. On the battlefield, Dao Lord Xianyu looked at the heavenly Fiend Dharma body opposite him with a hint of panic in his eyes. He suddenly realized that the situation was beyond his control. "Xianyu, hand over your life." Su Zimo said slowly, "Even your heaven and earth Dharma characteristic can't save you." Kill? Almost at the same time, the two heaven and earth Dharma characteristics moved. This movement caused the weather to change and the mountains to quake. One could imagine the scene of two divine Dharma characteristics that were 80 feet tall colliding. Bang, bang, bang. The two heaven and earth Dharma characteristics clashed continuously. The heavenly Fiend Dharma body released a thick Fiend chi that was as black as ink, corroding the divine light of the rainbow glass body with sizzling sounds. Of course, the most terrifying thing about the heavenly Fiend Dharma body was the heavenly Fiend scythe it wielded. The pitch-black scythe was extremely sharp and could slice the void into two with a casual wave. In the blink of an eye, the two Dharma characteristics were riddled with holes and covered in injuries as they fought to their limits. Finally, the rainbow glass body was the first to crumble and dissipated into Dharmic powers that dispersed into the world. Of course, the remaining heavenly Fiend Dharma body was also extremely damaged and could dissipate at any moment. Even so, the heavenly Fiend Dharma body was still under Su Zimo's control. Waving the damaged scythe, it slashed down viciously towards Dao Lord Xianyu. "Since you punched me, it's your turn to receive a slash from me now." Su Zimo roared with widened eyes. Oh. The scythe tore through the void with a black flash and arrived instantly. It was the same as what Su Zimo experienced earlier on. He could not dodge the punch of the rainbow glass body. Dao Lord Xianyu could not dodge the scythe of the heavenly Fiend Dharma body either. He could only take out a shield and circulate his blood chi to its limits to defend against the heavenly Fiend scythe. Boom. There was a deafening sound. The shield exploded instantly. The flesh on Dao Lord Xianyu's arm peeled off as well and was corroded by the Fiend chi, revealing a white bone beneath. Ah! Dao Lord Xianyu's face turned pale as he shrieked. Even with his glass true body, he was severely injured and his left arm was mostly crippled. It was almost severed entirely by the heavenly Fiend scythe. Of course, after this clash, the heavenly Fiend Dharma body could not hold on either and turned into billowing Fiend chi that lingered. Su Zimo opened his mouth and sucked. Swoosh! The Fiend chi surged in reverse and was devoured in the blink of an eye, replenishing his stamina and blood chi. Su Zimo would not give Dao Lord Xianyu any chance as he slapped his storage bag and brought out the Mystic Magnet Mountain once more. Smash! He pointed forward. The Mystic Magnet Mountain expanded against the wind and transformed into a gigantic mountain that smashed down towards Dao Lord Xianyu. A huge shadow loomed over. The Mystic Magnet Mountain was way too vast. Even if Dao Lord Xianyu wanted to dodge, he could not. His left arm was crippled and he could only raise his right arm. Disregarding his injuries, he channeled his blood chi once more and pushed upwards, lifting the Mystic Magnet Mountain with one hand. Dao Lord Xianyu spat out a mouthful of blood the moment they made contact. With his glass true body destroyed, he could no longer withstand the power of the mystic magnet mountain with a single arm. Creak, creak. Under the suppression of the mystic magnet mountain, his skeleton was already making a series of sounds and could not withstand the pressure. His organs began to shift and blood oozed out. Chapter 1182, Death of Xianyu. Chapter 1182, Death of Xianyu. Apart from exuding the power of magnetism, the mystic magnet mountain could also control Dharmic weapons made of metal, and its weight was extremely terrifying. Furthermore, as his cultivation increased, the mystic magnet mountain's weight would increase as well. Right now, the mystic magnet mountain was more than 100 feet tall and was twice as tall as the heaven and earth Dharma characteristics that they had cultivated. One could imagine how terrifying the pressure was for a cultivator to have such a massive mountain pressing down on him. If Dao Lord Xianyu was in his peak condition, the pressure of the mystic magnet mountain would naturally not be able to threaten him. However, he had just been severely injured by the heavenly fiend's scythe and his entire left arm was crippled. His blood chi was declining and he was almost crushed into a pulp from the suppression of the mystic magnet mountain. Dao Lord Xianyu's face turned purple as he propped up the mystic magnet mountain with one arm while his entire body trembled. He knew very well that he was at the end of his rope and his life was hanging by a thread. If he could not survive this, his 1,000 years of cultivation would be destroyed. Beams of rainbow-colored divine light suddenly appeared on Dao Lord Xianyu's left arm as his remaining flesh began to crystallize like jade. With that, his blood chi that was initially leaking stopped instantly. Rise. Dao Lord Xianyu released all the energy in his body and his blood chi surged, pushing the mystic magnet mountain upwards violently. The mystic magnet mountain was overturned and rolled to the side. Dao Lord Xianyu felt his body lighten as he panted heavily. However, his aura carried a strong stench of blood. It was a sign that his organs were severely injured. I can't fight anymore. That thought flashed through Dao Lord Xianyu's mind as he turned to flee. However, his vision blurred and a green beam of light appeared, crashing towards his face. Instinctively, Dao Lord Xianyu raised his right arm to defend. Given his physique, he would be able to endure even if Su Zimo summoned a Kanate Dao being Dharmic weapon. Bang! The right arm collided with the green light with a dull thud. Crack, crack, crack. Immediately after, the sound of bones cracking could be heard from Dao Lord Xianyu's right arm. Ah! A tearing pain surged through his heart as Dao Lord Xianyu let out a hysterical cry with a pained expression. His right arm was shattered by the green light. That green light was not a Kanate Dao being Dharmic weapon. It's the Creation Lotus platform that was comparable to a Kanate Dao Lord Dharmic weapon. Dao Lord Xianyu was severely injured consecutively and could no longer divert his attention to control the fire-blocking basket. The Creation Lotus platform seized the opportunity to break through the restraints of the fire-blocking basket. Under Su Zimo's control, it dealt another heavy blow to Dao Lord Xianyu. Even the fire-blocking basket was in Su Zimo's hands right now. At that moment, Dao Lord Xianyu's arms were crippled and his blood chi was weak. His essence spirit was weak and he no longer had any strength to resist. He had lost. Dao Lord Xianyu was defeated. Everyone had complicated expressions. They truly had not expected this battle to reach such a level and end with such an outcome. Monkey and the others finally heaved a sigh of relief. Little Fox burst into laughter through her tears and clapped in high spirits. I knew that young master would definitely win. Goddess True Jade, I won too. She looked at the white-robed woman smugly and waved her paws. The white-robed woman smiled gently and did not refute this time round. Su Zimo's victory was also beyond her expectations. The scene of Su Zimo condensing his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic had a huge impact on her mind as well. Xianyu, did you think about this day more than 100 years ago when you snatched this Dharmic weapon from Little Fox's hands? When you ordered the massacre of the living beings of the 13 cities of Yen country, did you ever think that one day, you would have to pay with your life and accompany the countless dead souls beneath the ruins? Su Zimo's expression was cold as he held the fire-blocking basket in his left hand. The creation green lotus circled around him as he walked towards Dao Lord Xianyu slowly. Fu-fu. Xianyu laughed and panted, mortals are like ants to us. What does it matter if we kill them? To think that you can't understand the logic behind it even after cultivating to this point and can't sever your attachments to the mortal world. You're wrong. Right then Xiaoning stood out and hollered. In the primordial era the human race was extremely weak and was enslaved by the thousands of races. Their lives were as worthless as grass. Later on the human race fought and the emperors rose together. Under the lead of the human emperor, they fought against the primordial 9 races and the thousands of races. Only then did they escape their tragic fate and welcome the golden era. In that era, many seniors and sages left behind their cultivation inheritances so that we could protect the world and the weak. However, even as the successor of an immortal sect, you treated mortals like ants and slaughtered them as you wished. What you've done is no different from the primordial 9 races in the past. Is that the sort of logic passed down in Glass Palace? Her words were righteous and awe-inspiring. Many cultivators present looked ashamed and lowered their heads. That was the most ironic thing. The human experts of the past chased away the primordial 9 races. However, the descendants of these experts took the place of the primordial 9 races and became even more terrifying. Be it the era ruled by the primordial 9 races or the era ruled by human cultivators later on, the weak mortals still suffered the most miserable and tragic fates. In the current world, how could mortals survive without immense strength? Cultivators could threaten them. Demon beasts could threaten them. In fact, it was even possible for countless mortals to be embroiled and helpless in a battle between cultivators. With a single thought, Dao Lord Xianyu massacred the living beings of the 13 cities of Yan country. Yet that was not just a lone incident. How many people died in the calamity of the Wuxia a year ago? This is Tianhuang mainland where the strong prey on the weak. There are countless mortals in the world. How many of them can you save, desolate marshal? Dao Lord Xianyu glared at Su Zimo and sneered. I've never thought of saving anyone. Su Zimo shook his head. I want to establish my Dao and impart martial arts to all living beings. I want to give everyone in the world a chance to control their own fate. I want everyone in the world to be able to cultivate and become immortals. Ha 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 ha. Xianyu roared with laughter as though he had heard the greatest joke in the world. That's impossible. Desolate marshal, you must be dreaming. Even in the ancient era where there were countless wise sages of the human race, that was not achieved. What rights do you have? Future generations will naturally know if I can do it. However, you won't have the chance to see it. Su Zimo did not say anything more and said indifferently, hand over your life. Boom. Stepping forward, Su Zimo held the creation lotus platform in his right hand and smashed it towards Dao Lord Xianyu's head. Shoo. A divine light flashed and escaped from Dao Lord Xianyu's body with a flustered expression. That was Dao Lord Xianyu's essence spirit. Kill? Su Zimo shouted. Thunderclap kill. Dao Lord Xianyu's essence spirit was already extremely weak after the consecutive battles and heavy injuries. Now that he was struck by the sound domain technique, Dao Lord Xianyu's essence spirit shuddered and almost dissipated on the spot. The next moment, the creation lotus platform descended. Poof. The lotus platform descended and crushed Dao Lord Xianyu's essence spirit into sludge. Dao Lord Xianyu was dead. Chapter 1183 Uneasy. Chapter 1183, Uneasy. The feud that had lasted for more than 100 years was finally resolved today. The world was silent. All the cultivators looked at the figure standing on the ruins with complex expressions. Desolate marshal wishes to establish a Dao and impart martial arts to all living beings. How ambitious. Suddenly, the sect master of Stellar Luna sect shook his head and waved his hand. Forget it, forget it. From this day forth, the feud between you and Stellar Luna sect shall be written off. There were many paragons of Stellar Luna sect who died in Su Zimo's hands at the North Region Dao meet in the Great Chen ruins. Now that a sect master of one of the North Region's upper sects made that statement, there was a huge significance to it. I've heard of the name Desolate Marshal before. Now that I've seen it for myself, I know that it's true. The Valley Master of Blaze Columbus Valley stood out as well and declared, Dao being Desolate Marshal, let's forget about the feud between you and Blaze Columbus Valley as well. At the end of the day there was no deep hatred between those sects and Su Zimo. Be it the Great Chen ruins or the battle at the North Region Dao meet, Su Zimo could not be blamed. The sect master of Heaven Motion sect sighed gently and said in a deep voice, Dao being Desolate Marshal, Heaven Motion sect will not look for trouble with you in the future either. In the blink of an eye, 3 sect masters of the 10 upper sects of the North region had already stood out, expressing that they were no longer on bad terms with Desolate Marshal. Desolate Marshal, my Murong family will no longer pursue the grudges of the past either. The Murong family's leader was a middle-aged beauty. After pausing for a moment, the Murong family's leader continued, if you can truly establish your martial arts and allow all living beings in the world to cultivate, I'll personally pay a visit to congratulate you. One of the 4 aristocratic families came forth as well. Su Zimo nodded to the sect masters and the matriarch as a response. As for the other upper sects and aristocratic families, none of them said anything. The forces of the Ouyang and Duanmu families in the North region were second only to Glass Palace and were even above many upper sects and aristocratic families. Their leaders had noble statuses and had been famous for a long time. They would naturally not take the initiative to reconcile with a void reversion. As for the other factions, even though some of the sect masters wanted to reconcile, they remained silent for fear of losing face. However, some of the sect masters had other intentions. The sect master of Dragon Tiger sect was expressionless. The situation of the Dragon Tiger sect was different from the other upper sects and aristocratic families. Dragon Tiger sect was involved in the Witch Gu calamity a year ago. Most of the cultivators of Dragon Tiger sect attacked Ethereal Peak before dying in Su Zimo's hands. The sect master of Dragon Tiger sect knew very well that Su Zimo would not let this matter rest. Furthermore, he could not take this lying down either. It was as Elderly had said, Desolate Marshal had to die. Otherwise, not many people would be able to restrain Desolate Marshal once he entered the Dharma characteristic realm. At that time, Dragon Tiger sect would be the one to suffer. Elderly had already joined forces with the 5 conjoint body mighty figures of Ean Ghost sect, 7 Kills sect, Blood Mist sect, Mystic Firmament Divine Cult and Yuan clan, a total of 6 conjoint body mighty figures. By now, Elderly and the others should have arrived. The sect master of Dragon Tiger sect believed that nothing would happen if 6 conjoint body mighty figures worked together to kill a void reversion. He exchanged glances with the sect master of Blood Mist sect and the others as they nodded imperceptibly. By now, many cultivators had already left. The sect master of Dragon Tiger sect and the others did not stay on the spot and left with everyone. In less than an hour, most of the cultivators in the vicinity of the old capital of Yen country had already left. Only some of Su Zimo's friends and acquaintances remained. Monkey Nian Chi Tao Yao Xiaoning Ji Yao Xue, the old immortal crane and the others gathered together and chatted casually with relaxed expressions. When Xiaoning found out that the adorable child Tao Yao was transformed from the peach blossom tree in Su Zimo's courtyard, she was even more amazed. Among everyone, Su Zimo was the only one who frowned slightly, as though he had something on his mind. Everyone did not think too much about it. They merely thought that Su Zimo was feeling emotional after personally settling a huge hatchet with a strong foe. Young master. Right then, a soft voice sounded from the crowd. Monkey and the others were stunned for a moment before exchanging glances and looking delighted. Little Fox. They had been with Little Fox for more than 100 years and were naturally extremely familiar with her voice. The crowd parted. A fiery red fox was running towards Su Zimo, wagging its furry tail excitedly with eyes filled with the joy of reuniting. Su Zimo cast away his distracting thoughts and smiled, opening his arms slightly. Little Fox leaped into his embrace and stuck her head out, rubbing against his warm chest. She felt extremely blessed at the scent of that familiar aura. Su Zimo rubbed Little Fox's head and his heart skipped a beat. As though he sensed something, he looked forward instinctively. Not far away, a white-robed woman stood. She was flawless and otherworldly, like a fairy that had descended to the mortal world. Among the women present, Qing Qing, Cuckoo and Xiaoning were rare beauties with their own unique characteristics. As the Empress of Great Zhou Ji Yaoxue was even more elegant and beautiful. Her aura was outstanding and she was dazzling. However, after the white-robed woman appeared, the brilliance of the women seemed to dim instantly. Even Monkey, the spirit tiger and the other demon beasts were stunned when they saw the white-robed woman, let alone Su Zimo. Consort you? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and he shouted instinctively. The moment he said that, he felt that it was inappropriate. Consort you was the title given to her by the Emperor of Great Qian. It was truly disrespectful for him to address her directly and he was not in the capacity to do so either. Indeed, the white-robed woman frowned slightly when she heard that, seemingly displeased. Young master, Her Highness's Tao title is True Jade. Little Fox whispered, Consort Yu was her previous title. There's no need for that anymore. Su Zimo nodded. Greetings, Senior True Jade. Su Zimo bowed hurriedly with cupped fists. As he looked at the white-robed woman, he could not help but recall the stunning figure he saw in the cave and was lost in thought. It was not his fault. Even her appearance was unforgettable, let alone the flawless luster of her perfect body. Just as Su Zimo was in a daze, he suddenly felt a chill. He could not help but shudder. Not far away, Goddess True Jade was glaring at him fiercely as she asked in a frosty tone, What were you thinking about just now? Nothing much. Su Zimo looked embarrassed and guilty. If Goddess True Jade was truly enraged and wanted to dig out his eyes, he would truly have no way of resisting. Young master, what happened to you earlier on? Why are you so worried after the battle? Although they had been separated for 100 years, Little Fox could tell at a glance that Su Zimo was not quite himself. For some reason I feel uneasy. Su Zimo frowned. It was a hunch that would definitely not happen without reason. Su Zimo glanced at Goddess True Jade before shaking his head. Even though she had said some harsh words, Su Zimo could not sense any killing intent from her. But where was the source of this uneasiness? What was wrong? Suddenly, Su Zimo asked, What happened in the North region while I was in seclusion? Nothing much. Nian Qi shook her head. Many sects and factions were waiting to see the battle between you and Tao Lord Xianyu. Pausing for a moment, Nian Qi thought for a moment and continued, However, there was indeed something unusual. The grand elders of some of the upper sects such as Dragon Tiger Sect and Blood Mist Sect suddenly announced that they were leaving their sections. After a moment of silence, Su Zimo's expression changed starkly. Chapter 1184, Six Mighty Figures. Chapter 1184, Six Mighty Figures. Something's not right. Su Zimo shook his head with a grim expression. What's wrong with that? When everyone saw Su Zimo's terrible expression, they stopped talking and asked. If I'm not wrong, the Grand Elders of Dragon Tiger Sect and Blood Mist Sect are all conjoint body mighty figures. Su Zimo said slowly, It's way too strange for these conjoint body mighty figures to announce that they're leaving the sect at such a time. They must have other motives. Young master, you mean that they will attack you? Nian Qi's heart sank as she realized that something was amiss as well. Ji Yaoshua frowned. 10 years ago, the conjoint body mighty figures of the various super sects attacked Dragon Burial Valley but returned in defeat. Zimo, the Mahayana patriarch backing you, has already warned the cultivation world. Won't the conjoint body mighty figure of Dragon Tiger Sect be afraid of angering the patriarch and implicating his sect if he attacks you? At that point, Ji Yaoshua's expression changed as though she had realized something. The reason why those conjoint body mighty figures left their sects at this time was because they were worried about implicating their sects. Su Zimo remained silent. The sense of danger was getting closer and he even felt suffocated. They're here? Suddenly Su Zimo said. The moment he said that, 6 figures suddenly appeared in midair, each of them emitting a shuddering aura. That aura had already far surpassed the Dharma characteristic realm. There were 5 old men and a middle-aged man. 6 conjoint body mighty figures. Spirit consciousness barrier, dimensional lock. The 6 conjoint body mighty figures shouted at the same time and waved their hands, causing visible ripples in the void. Immediately after, a strange feeling surfaced in the hearts of Su Zimo and the others. It was as though the space they were in was completely isolated from the outside world. It was as though the entire old capital of Yen country was completely sealed. In fact, they could not even sense the heaven and earth powers. Su Zimo's gaze was cold. The old immortal crane and the others had ugly expressions and were burning with anxiety. Among everyone, the only one who was calm and composed without any change in expression the entire time was Goddess True Jade. In midair, the gazes of the 6 conjoint body mighty figures landed on Su Zimo after they laid the formations. Desolate Marshal, you're smart. You've already guessed our intention of leaving our sections. Among them, an old man stood out and shook his head with a smile. Unfortunately, you realized it too late. Who are you? Su Zimo asked coldly. There's no harm in telling you. You're someone about to die anyway. The old man smiled indifferently. I'm the Grand Elder of the Dragon Tiger Sect. My Tao title is Bone Spirit. Dragon Tiger Sect, very good. Su Zimo nodded. Another old man's face was withered and yellow like a sickly child. He exuded a sinister aura and said, I'm Elder Hasia of Een Ghost Sect. The third old man was filled with killing intent and said simply, 7 Kills Sect, Cruel Sunday. I'm Lust Fiend of Blood Mist Sect, haha. Desolate Marshal, I heard that your combat strength has not diminished even after you reconstructed your body. I want to taste your blood. The fourth old man stuck out his scarlet tongue and licked his lips. I'm Yuan Xiong. The background of the fifth old man was known without need for elaboration. After a brief pause, Yuan Xiong looked at Su Zimo and said indifferently, Yuan Wushuang is my grandson. Yuan Xiong looked very calm when he said that. However, everyone could sense the surging killing intent behind that calmness. The sixth conjoint body mighty figure was a middle-aged man. That person gave a sinister smile, looking unrestrained and cynical. Mystic Firmament Divine Cult, Lang Yu. You can also call me Exalted Master Lang Yu. 5 of the 10 upper sects of the North region were here. There was one of the 4 gentry clans. Even in the ancient era, there had never been the need for such a grand lineup just to kill a single void reversion. 6 conjoint body mighty figures. I'm truly flattered. Su Zimo laughed self-deprecatingly. Are you stalling for time? Elder Bone Spirit of Dragon Tiger Sect suddenly asked before shaking his head. Desolate Marshal, give up. Since we've already decided to join forces to kill you, we won't allow any accidents to happen. Oh. Su Zimo raised his brow. Elder Bone Spirit said proudly, with the spirit consciousness barrier, even your messenger talismans can't be sent out. The space here has already been sealed by us. Even if you have a treasure like a transference talisman, you won't be able to escape. This time round they were fully prepared. Apart from the creation Green Lotus and other treasures, the main reason why Su Zimo was able to survive in the Dao Inheritance Ground was because of the major transference talisman. Therefore, the first thing the 6 of them did after appearing was to seal the space here. Even a major transference talisman could not be released here. Despicable. Nianqi said coldly. As conjoined body experts, you guys actually joined forces to kill a void reversion. Do you guys have any shame? Little Fox could not help but grumble. Fufu, you're way too childish. Elder Bone Spirit sneered. Yuan Xiong said, you crippled my grandson. It's only right and proper for me to take revenge. Desolate Marshal, your mistake is that you shouldn't have provoked my Yuan clan. Elder Lust Fiend of Blood Mist Sect grinned. Our upper sects and gentry clans have been around for more than 10,000 years. What sort of foundation do you think we have? Do you think you can challenge us? Since you want a challenge, prepare to be destroyed at any moment. Ji Yaoshua took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, Seniors, Zimo has the backing of a Mahayana patriarch. Are you guys really not afraid of the patriarch's wrath for injuring his life? The few of us don't have much lifespan left. Elder Bone Spirit said, even if that's not the case, we'll only live on for a few hundred years more at most. Tiske, our lives are worth it in exchange for the life of the #1 monster incarnate in history. Elder Hasia of Een Ghost Sect laughed sinisterly. Of course, among the 6 conjoint body mighty figures, apart from the 5 old men, Exalted Master Lang Yu of Mystic Firmament Divine Cult was at his peak. Exalted Master Lang Yu did not mind at all. He smiled and said, I'll leave after killing Desolate Marshal. Maybe to the Middle Continent, maybe to the West region? Even if the Mahayana Patriarch is extremely powerful, he might not be able to find me as long as I hide carefully. I heard that the Patriarch at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley doesn't have many years left to live. At most, I'll wait till he's dead before coming out of seclusion. Exalted Master Lang Yu was excited. Who knows, I might even be able to break through to the Mahayana realm under the pressure of the pursuit of a Mahayana Patriarch. The 5 old men had already seen through life and death. As for Exalted Master Lang Yu, it was clear that he was a fearless maniac with no regard for consequences. These 6 conjoint body mighty figures truly had no reservations for grouping up together. What should we do? Shall we kill our way out? How do we kill them? Even 1 conjoint body mighty figure is enough to kill us, let alone 6 of them. But we can't wait for death here. Monkey and the others frowned and communicated with their spirit consciousnesses. Su Zimo was not involved. Without batting an eyelid, he glanced at Goddess True Jade who was not far away. At that moment, Goddess True Jade had an indifferent expression. She was neither frustrated nor impatient. Su Zimo felt relieved when he saw her expression. The killing plan of Elder Bone Spirit and the others this time round was truly flawless. If there was truly a variable, it could only be Goddess True Jade. Chapter 1185, Dead Mighty Figure. Chapter 1185, Dead Mighty Figure. A few hundred kilometers away from the old capital of Yen Country. The sect masters of Dragon Tiger Sect, Blood Mist Sect, Seven Kills Sect and the other upper sects exchanged glances and nodded. All of them paused and looked in the direction of the old capital of Yen Country. "Why aren't you guys leaving?" The sect master of Stellar Luna Sect asked with a frown. "Nothing much. We're just waiting for an outcome." The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect replied indifferently. The sect master of Stellar Luna Sect was shocked and asked hurriedly, "You guys really attacked Desolate Marshal?" The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect sneered, "If Stellar Luna Sect doesn't make a move, there will naturally be other sections. This lad won't survive beyond today." Elder Bone Spirit of Dragon Tiger Sect had not only invited the conjoint body mighty figures of Blood Mist Sect, Een Ghost Sect and other sects for help, he tried persuading the other sects as well. However, sects like Stellar Luna Sect did not agree to it. The matriarch of Murong clan mulled in silence before shaking her head. Desolate Marshal wishes to impart martial arts to all living beings. If he succeeds, it will be the fortune of the world. You guys should not kill him. Humph. The patriarch of Yuan clan's tone was unfriendly as he said coldly, "Desolate Marshal doesn't differentiate between good and evil. He is sworn siblings with fiend demons and does everything based on impulse without any restraint at all. It would definitely be a disaster for the North region to let such a person live and grow." The sect master of Seven Kills Sect nodded in agreement. "That's right. This lad is way too sharp. We have to kill him." The sect master of Stellar Luna Sect and the others did not agree with that statement. However, they were naturally unwilling to get into a fight with the sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect and the others over that. The Valley Master of Blaze Columbus Valley asked, "Who's there?" Including Elder Bone Spirit of our sect, there are a total of 6 Grand Elders. The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect declared proudly. The hearts of the sect master of Stellar Luna Sect and the others skipped a beat as they exchanged glances. Sighing internally, they shook their heads. There was no hope. Initially, they were still thinking that Desolate Marshal's luck was strong and he had many trump cards. He might be able to find a chance to survive. Now that they knew it was a combined attack from 6 conjoint body mighty figures, Desolate Marshal was definitely doomed. Elder Bone Spirit and the others have already sealed the space over there. It should be over soon. The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect murmured softly. Although he knew that there wouldn't be any accidents, he still wanted to wait and see the outcome. A cold wind blew. Suddenly, he felt a chill and could not help but frown as he muttered to himself, "There shouldn't be any variables, right?" After pondering for a long time, he shook his head. "I don't think so. Yes, definitely not." The old capital of Yen Country. "Oh, right, I forgot to tell you." Suddenly Elder Bone Spirit laughed. "We decided to take action after confirming that there's no activity in the Dragon Burial Valley. Therefore you don't have to hope for that patriarch to appear and save you. We've already preempted all the variables that you can think of." He sighed. "Desolate Marshal, it's time to send you on your way." "Preempted all the variables?" "Not necessarily." Su Zimo said indifferently before looking at Goddess True Jade who was not far away. He cupped his fists. "Senior, do help us with this calamity." She was not standing together with Su Zimo and the others. It was only now that Elder Bone Spirit and the others noticed her. What a stunner. Exalted Master Lang, you could not help but exclaim. Elder Bone Spirit and the others glanced at Goddess True Jade and frowned. Although this woman was indeed extremely beautiful, she did not pose much attraction to the few old men. Furthermore, apart from her beauty, there was nothing special about her. She did not exude any powerful aura and looked like a mortal. She looked at Su Zimo with a fake smile and asked instead, "Why should I help you?" Su Zimo smiled bitterly. "It's clear that the 6 conjoint body mighty figures don't intend to kill me alone. I'm afraid you won't be able to stay out of it, Senior." "That's fine. Goddess True Jade replied indifferently, "When the time comes, I'll take little fox away. Nobody can stop me. What has your life and death got to do with me? All of you have to die. None of you can escape." Elder Lust Fiend of Blood Mist Sect smacked his lips and said murderously. Goddess True Jade frowned in displeasure. However, Elder Bone Spirit and the others did not notice it at all. Even if they noticed the change in Goddess True Jade's expression, they wouldn't take it to heart. "Don't?" Exalted Master Lang Yu hurriedly said, "Fellow Taoists, please do me a favor. Leave this beauty and that fox to me." "What? Are you tempted, Exalted Master?" Elder Hasia of Yin Ghost Sect asked. Exalted Master Lang Yu smiled knowingly and nodded. "That woman is of the highest quality. Such beauty is rare in this world. Since I've bumped into her, there's no way I'll let her off." Elder Hasia leered. "I do know of a secret skill that allows this beauty to serve you obediently as her master. She will be utterly loyal and will abide by all your commands." Exalted Master Lang Yu's eyes lit up. The two of them discussed as though there was no one else around and did not notice that Goddess True Jade's expression had already turned completely frosty. "You guys truly have a death wish," she murmured softly. "Oh, the lady is angry?" Exalted Master Lang Yu smirked evilly. "Even when you're angry, you are so captivating." "Lang Yu." Right then Elder Bone Spirit hollered. He had already vaguely realized that something was amiss. He could not see through this woman's cultivation realm. Initially he thought that this was a mortal. However, why would a mortal be here? Furthermore, how could she remain calm in the face of their auras? Could this woman be a conjoint body mighty figure as well? However, Elder Bone Spirit was puzzled. Every single conjoint body mighty figure was renowned throughout the world and it was impossible for him not to know them. However, he had never seen this woman before. Goddess True Jade, kill them. Right then Little Fox gripped her paws and shouted. "All right." Goddess True Jade nodded. She did not make any large movements. With just a single stride, she ignored the distance between them and arrived before Elder Hasia instantly. "Psst. What speed?" Elder Hasia was alarmed. He did not have time to think and instinctively punched back at Goddess True Jade. A conjoint body mighty figure could shake the world with every move. What seemed like a simple punch released an extremely terrifying power. Countless ghostly shadows burst forth at the same time and lunged at Goddess True Jade. Her expression did not change and she merely opened her mouth slightly before exhaling gently. Instantly, the temperature in the void plummeted. Even Su Zimo and the others on the ground felt a chilling sensation. The world seemed to have frozen. Crack, crack, crack. Countless ghosts were frozen by the cold air. A layer of frost covered Elder Hasia's fist and arm as well. The speed of his punch decreased significantly. Right then, Goddess True Jade extended a jade-white finger that was crystal clear and tender. Instantly, it tapped on Elder Hasia's glabella. It was too fast. Although the fight sounded slow upon narration, it happened in a flash. Elder Hasia's expression froze as disbelief streaked through his eyes. Thereafter, his gaze dimmed and he fell from midair. Before he even landed on the ground, there was already no life left in his body. A conjoint body mighty figure was dead. Chapter 1186 Jade Hairpin. Chapter 1186, Jade Hairpin. You. Elder Bone Spirit and the others were shocked. This change had completely exceeded their expectations. Even though they had already sensed that something was amiss, they did not expect that this seemingly weak woman with a beauty that could topple countries would be so terrifying the moment she attacked. Even Elder Hasia could not last 2 blows from this woman. Su Zimo and the others were shocked as well. There was no need to elaborate on the others. Apart from Little Fox, none of them knew who Goddess True Jade was. On the other hand, Su Zimo was clear about the background of Goddess True Jade. He had also heard Monk Yuan Bei mention that she had reached the conjoint body realm after cultivating for 2,000 years. Her potential was heaven-defying and could be considered terrifying. However, the Great Qin Empire was destroyed by the catastrophe later on and Consort Yu vanished as well. According to his deduction, she should have fallen asleep in the volcano beneath the ruins and only awakened in this lifetime. In other words, she was at least at the conjoint body realm. Su Zimo had another thought. It was only logical that Goddess True Jade could kill Elder Hasia so easily. According to his calculations, she should be around 12,000 years old. For a conjoint body realm cultivator with 20,000 years of lifespan, she was at the peak and had a strong blood chi. However, Elder Wuxia was already in his twilight years and only had a few hundred years to live. His blood chi was deteriorating and his combat strength was decreasing. He was naturally no match for Goddess True Jade. Furthermore, Elder Wuxia had underestimated his opponent. There was no way he would have expected such a terrifying variable to exist in this ruin. Be careful, everyone. Elder Bone Spirit reminded hurriedly. The remaining 5 conjoint body mighty figures reacted extremely quickly and made a prompt decision to attack Goddess True Jade at almost the same time. Suddenly, a gigantic bone saber appeared in Elder Bone Spirit's hands. It burned with white flames and emitted a terrifying aura. Swash! Elder Bone Spirit wielded his saber with both hands and charged towards Goddess True Jade. Dragon Tiger Sect specialized in body tempering. Even though he was already in his twilight years, his specialty was still melee combat. Yuan Xiong took out a gigantic heavy iron spear from his storage bag and dragged it through the void, leaving a trail behind. He strode forward and closed in on Goddess True Jade as well. Elder Cruel Son of 7 Kills Sect, Elder Lust Fiend of Blood Mist Sect and Exalted Master Lang Yu of Mystic Firmament Divine Cult released powerful Dharmic arts from the periphery. Blood Mist Devour. Elder Lust Fiend conjured hand seals and pointed forward. A blood mist spread out around his body and rapidly formed a blood-colored head that was malevolent and terrifying as it devoured towards Goddess True Jade. 7 Kills Sword. With a cold expression, Elder Cruel Son hollered and slashed forward with his sword fingers. Suddenly, 7 long swords with a chilling killing intent appeared above Goddess True Jade's head and slashed down viciously. Exalted Master Lang Yu's glabella shone and an ancient mirror surfaced. Mystic Firmament Treasure Mirror, Sea of Misery. Wielding a mighty figure Dharmic weapon, he conjured a Dharmic art and shot a stream of Dharmic powers into the ancient mirror. Suddenly, the ancient mirror shone with a beam of light that scattered into the void where Goddess True Jade landed. Bang! Boom! Boom! A shocking scene descended. Su Zimo and the others looked up and saw a vast ocean appear out of thin air. It blotted out the skies and surged with waves, as though it could devour all living beings. They could clearly sense that every single drop of seawater in the Sea of Misery was formed from extremely pure Dharmic powers. A single drop of seawater could cause mountains to collapse and kill Dharma characteristic Tao lords with ease. Everyone was shocked. Conjoint body mighty figures truly had the power to shake the heavens, quake the earth, move mountains and fill oceans. Range and melee combat. Even though this was the first time the 5 conjoint body mighty figures were joining forces, they were experienced and cooperated extremely well. The attacks of the 5 of them were terrifying and almost drowned Goddess True Jade. Although they had witnessed the capabilities of Goddess True Jade, Su Zimo and the others were still worried. Sharp swords hovered, the Sea of Misery beneath, and incoming blood mist alongside attacks from the bone saber and iron spear. Even in the face of such intense attacks, Goddess True Jade's expression was indifferent. With light steps, she charged towards Yuan Xiong at the side, leaving behind a series of graceful figures. She was truly elegant and classy as a dragon. Even during the battle, Goddess True Jade's figure was extremely beautiful without any signs of wretchedness. What was even rarer was that she managed to dodge most of the attacks with that beautiful dance. The 7 Kill sword missed completely. Reaching out with her jade-like hand, she pulled out a jade-green hairpin that was only the length of a finger from the black hair on her head. Her black hair fell along with the wind, making her look even more elegant. Goddess True Jade raised her palm. Shoo! A jade-green light flashed and pierced through the incoming blood-colored head. The blood-colored head paused in midair for a moment before exploding. With a flash of light, the jade hairpin pierced towards Elder Lust Fiend's glabella. Ah! Elder Lust Fiend was shocked. He had not expected that Goddess True Jade would have the strength to retaliate despite being surrounded. Furthermore, he had been attacking from afar and had not expected that she would choose to attack him first. The jade hairpin arrived instantly. In a flash, Elder Lust Fiend took out a gigantic turtle shell from his storage bag and blocked the jade hairpin. The turtle shell had a powerful origin. It was obtained by killing a pure-blooded grand demon black turtle in the East Sea. The most indestructible part of the black turtle's body was the shell on its back. It might even be tougher than perfect mighty figure Dharmic weapons. Clang! The jade hairpin made a crisp sound when it collided against the mysterious turtle shell. Immediately after, Elder Lust Fiend heard a jarring sound. It was as though something was shattering in front of him. Could it be? A thought flashed through Elder Lust Fiend's mind. That was impossible. That tiny jade hairpin was incomparably fragile. How could it pierce through the shell of a grand demon black turtle? Unless that jade hairpin is a Dharmic treasure? Dharmic treasures were weapons that were infused with divine powers and could only be wielded by Ancestor realm experts. Elder Lust Fiend stared at the turtle shell in his palm and his pupils constricted. Crack. Suddenly, the center of the turtle shell shattered and a green beam of light pierced through his palm without any resistance. Ah! Elder Lust Fiend shrieked from the pain. However, right after, the shriek came to an abrupt stop. A bloody hole appeared on Elder Lust Fiend's glabella. Behind his head, a green jade hairpin pierced through his skull slowly and stuck out. There was no trace of blood on it. Elder Lust Fiend died on the spot. Against the encirclement of 5 conjoint body mighty figures, Goddess True Jade retaliated domineeringly and killed one of them right away. However, she did not stop. Stepping on the sea of misery's jade waves, she distanced herself from Elder Bone Spirit and avoided the 7-kill sword, arriving before Yuan Xiong. Herg? Yuan Xiong was strong and muscular. With a furious roar, he raised his iron spear with both hands and thrust it towards Goddess True Jade. The power of the spear was immense and it was extremely fast. Ripples even appeared around the spear. It tore through the air and headed straight for Goddess True Jade's face. Chapter 1187, Half-Martial Ancestor. Chapter 1187, Half-Martial Ancestor. In the face of the incoming heavy iron spear, Goddess True Jade's expression did not change as she reached out with her slender hand and grabbed the spear's head. Yuan Xiong's expression changed and he wanted to burst forth with his blood chi to blast Goddess True Jade away. However, no matter how hard he tried and even as his face flushed red, she would not budge at all. Even Goddess True Jade's wrist did not show any signs of trembling. It was only at that moment that Yuan Xiong realized the difference between him and Goddess True Jade. Unfortunately, he realized it too late. Even despite your age. Suddenly, Goddess True Jade spoke. Gripping the iron spear in her right hand, she strode forward and extended her left hand, slapping towards Yuan Xiong's chest in a seemingly light manner. You have no morals. With that remark, Goddess True Jade's palm pushed against Yuan Xiong's chest. Bang. Yuan Xiong's chest caved in rapidly, almost sticking to his spine. From the looks of it, it was as though he was smashed into pieces by a single palm strike from Goddess True Jade. The physical body of a conjoint body mighty figure was fused with their heaven and earth Dharma characteristic alongside Dharmic powers. They were invulnerable to weapons, fire, water and would never decay. To think that his life would have been severed by Goddess True Jade's seemingly frail palm. Yuan Xiong's essence spirit flew out from the top of his head and fled into the distance with a flustered expression. Even if he did not have much lifespan left, he did not want to be randomly beaten to death by a woman who appeared out of nowhere. Without even looking at him, Goddess True Jade turned around and walked towards Exalted Master Lang Yu, graceful as a fairy. The meaning of ethereal was embodied completely through her elegant strides. Yuan Xiong was delighted. Escaping from this calamity was better than dying here with his Tao destroyed. However, before the joy in his eyes dissipated, he sensed a strong sense of danger and caught sight of a jade-green glow from the corner of his eye. It's that jade hairpin? A final thought flashed through Yuan Xiong's mind. Poof. The jade hairpin passed through his essence spirit without stopping. Yuan Xiong was dead. Goddess True Jade's methods were so powerful and terrifying that half of the 6 conjoint body mighty figures were dead in the blink of an eye. Su Zimo and the others were invigorated. Of course, the remaining 3 conjoint body mighty figures were even more difficult to deal with. Among them, Exalted Master Lang Yu of Mystic Firmament Divine Cult was at his peak age and his blood chi was domineering, far surpassing the other 5 conjoint body elders. True enough. Exalted Master Lang Yu had a grim expression as he conjured hand seals repeatedly, sending Dharmic powers into the ancient mirror before him. Although he spoke with zero restraint, his combat strength was indeed much stronger than Elder Haixia and the others. Mystic Firmament Treasure Mirror, Hidden Dragon goes to sea. With a loud shout from Exalted Master Lang Yu, the initially turbulent sea of misery suddenly caved in, forming a gigantic vortex. A divine dragon with a terrifying aura crawled out of the sea. Its horns were towering and its gaze was sharp. Opening its mouth, it let out an earth-shaking dragon roar towards Goddess True Jade. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Although the divine dragon was only condensed from the Dharmic powers of exalted Master Lang Yu, it was already lifelike and filled with a dragon might that shook the skies. Under the gaze of the divine dragon, Goddess True Jade looked incomparably tiny as she stood on the water surface, as though she could be devoured at any moment. It's just a small trick, it's nothing much. She harumphed coldly and stomped her feet gently. The howling sea of misery seemed to have been severely injured by the stomp and calmed down instantly. Crack, crack, crack. Immediately after, frost filled the air above the sea of misery, and with Goddess True Jade as the center, it spread out rapidly and froze the surroundings. The divine dragon that had just leaped out of the sea merely roared. Before it could do anything, it was enveloped by the cold aura and frozen to ice. This? Exalted Master Lang Yu was starting to panic. That Dharmic art could be considered as his strongest trump card. However, he had not expected it to be completely vulnerable before Goddess True Jade. At that moment, Goddess True Jade had already arrived before him with a cold expression. "They're old fogies, it's fine if they die. However, you're different. Initially, I wanted to spare your life on account of how difficult it was for you to cultivate. However, it's a pity that you're so brazen with that dirty mouth to harbor designs on me. I'm left with no choice but to send you on your way." Before she finished her sentence, Goddess True Jade had already extended her palm and slapped the top of Exalted Master Lang Yu's head. Exalted Master Lang Yu did not dare to be careless. He hurriedly placed the ancient mirror above his head and released a blazing beam of light. The beam of light was so strong that it could even penetrate a conjoint body mighty figure's body. However, there were no ripples when the beam of light landed on Goddess True Jade's delicate palm. All of a sudden, a ball of scorching flames appeared in Goddess True Jade's palm and engulfed the ancient mirror, burning furiously. "Pust!" Exalted Master Lang Yu gasped. The ancient mirror was his destiny Dharmic weapon that was inherited from Mystic Firmament Divine Cult. Coupled with his sex cultivation technique, the Mystic Firmament Treasure Mirror, it was extremely powerful. However, against the raging flames in Goddess True Jade's palm, the ancient mirror creaked and was burned red, almost transparent. "I've got to give it my all." Exalted Master Lang Yu's eyes were bloodshot as he bit his tongue gently and spat out a mouthful of essence blood onto the ancient mirror. That was his destiny Dharmic weapon and he could not abandon it. With the augmentation of the essence blood, the ancient mirror shone brightly and was still resisting with all its might. A look of mockery flashed through Goddess True Jade's eyes as she retracted the flames in her palm. In its place was a bone-chilling coldness that enveloped the ancient mirror instantly. Shing. The different powers of ice and fire were activated on the ancient mirror, emanating an extremely terrifying aura. Exalted Master Lang Yu was not the only one affected by the aura. Even Elder Bone Spirit and Elder Cruel Sun who were charging forward were shocked and exclaimed, "Divine powers." The power of extreme heat and coldness struck the ancient mirror and released a terrifying power that surpassed Dharmic powers. Divine powers. Divine powers were divided into different grades: lesser, greater or peerless divine powers. But no matter what, divine powers were something that only Ancestor realm experts could control. This power was already above the conjoint body realm. It was only at that moment that Elder Bone Spirit and the other two realized that the woman before them was not at the conjoint body realm at all. She was a half-step Mahayana. In other words, she was a legendary half-martial Ancestor expert. This turn of events truly scared the three of them out of their wits. Boom. Under the effect of the divine power, the ancient mirror exploded. Many shards flew towards Goddess True Jade and fell before they could get close. However, Exalted Master Lang Yu was not that lucky. His destiny Dharmic weapon was destroyed and his essence spirit was implicated. As though he was struck by lightning, his body shuddered and his mind was in chaos. At that moment, there was no way he could dodge the incoming shards of the Dharmic weapon. The Dharmic weapon shards contained remnants of the divine power and were extremely powerful. Numerous Dharmic weapon shards entered his body instantly and penetrated it, causing blood to splatter everywhere. His consciousness was pierced by at least 3 shards and his essence spirit was smashed into pieces. It had long dissipated. Exalted Master Lang Yu's corpse fell onto the ruins and died. Goddess True Jade seemed extremely disdainful towards Exalted Master Lang Yu and did not even touch the latter even by the clothes the entire time. However, Exalted Master Lang Yu was already a dead man. Chapter 1188, Prediction. Chapter 1188, Prediction. A huge battle broke out between the two parties, and in a flash, only 2 of the 6 conjoint body mighty figures were left. Furthermore, the remaining Elder Bone Spirit and Elder Cruel Sun were both old men in their twilight years. How could this be? How could there be a half-martial ancestor expert in this desolate and dilapidated old capital? Ancestor realm. Even half-martial ancestors were a barrier that many conjoint body mighty figures could not reach. Throughout history, countless paragons and cultivators had entered the conjoint body realm and become mighty figures. All of those mighty figures had immense luck and countless fortuitous encounters. All of them were famous existences. However, with the sands of time, how many conjoint body mighty figures could take that step forward and advance to the Mahayana realm? Not to mention a full step, even half a step was enough to stump countless mighty figures. All of those mighty figures were extremely powerful and intimidating. They roamed the world unhindered and rarely met their match. They had a lifespan of 20,000 years, but most of them stopped before the Ancestor realm and died after expending their lifespans. At the Ancestor realm, one could extend their lifespan to 100,000 years after comprehending divine powers. From 20,000 to 100,000 years of lifespan, it was clear how huge the gap between the 2 major cultivation realms was. Elder Bone Spirit stood on the spot motionlessly with a conflicted expression. There was panic, indignance, fear, and regret. Elder Cruel Sun's reaction was extremely fast, and he did not have that many thoughts in his mind. He made a prompt decision and turned to flee without hesitation. Why waste your energy? You won't be able to escape. Goddess True Jade smiled indifferently and strode forward. As though she had crossed the limits of space, she caught up to Elder Cruel Sun in the blink of an eye. I'll fight it out with you. Seeing that he could not escape, Elder Cruel Sun turned around with bloodshot eyes. He conjured hand seals repeatedly and growled, 8 killing body. 7 kills sect originally had 7 killing techniques. However, in reality only a small number of people in the sect knew that above the 7 kills, there was an 8th killing technique, the killing body technique. The so-called killing body technique was to abandon one's life to release a most terrifying attack. Once that secret skill was released, he would be the first to die. Elder Cruel Sun's body expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye. Every single drop of his flesh was filled with immense Dharmic powers and was about to explode. Humph! Goddess True Jade waved her sleeves gently and a streak of frost engulfed Elder Cruel Sunday. The Dharmic powers that were already boiling in Elder Cruel Sun's body calmed down instantly and layers of ice condensed around him, chilling him to the bones. It's fine if you want to die. Just stay away and don't spill any blood on me. Goddess True Jade frowned. She was always picky about cleanliness. Even after a huge battle, her body would be spotless. She hated filthy things like blood the most. The layers of ice froze Elder Cruel Sun's bloodline and Dharmic powers. Even his consciousness was invaded by the frost chi and gradually turned into ice. Elder Cruel Sun could only stare with widened eyes. The coldness seeped in and he could not even move his eyeballs. Gradually, frost filled his entire consciousness and his essence spirit was filled with ice crystals. His life was gone. Elder Cruel Sun was frozen into a human-shaped ice block. Goddess True Jade gave a casual slap on the surface. Elder Cruel Sun shattered into many pieces of ice without any blood splattering on the ground. This was a mighty figure. 10,000 years ago, he was a renowned expert of the North region and was invincible. To think that right now he would end up in a state where his essence spirit was destroyed and he did not even have a corpse remaining. Of the 6 conjoint body mighty figures, there was only one left. Elder Bone Spirit did not escape. He knew very well that he could not escape from a half-martial ancestor given his capabilities. He felt a strong sense of indignance when he looked at the white-robed woman who was walking over slowly. Finally, he could not help but ask, "May I know what sect or faction you are from, fellow Taoist?" "Why are you asking this?" Goddess True Jade asked instead of answering. "I just want to die knowing why." Elder Bone Spirit clenched his fists and said slowly, "As a half-martial ancestor, you're definitely not a nobody. I've cultivated in the cultivation world for more than 20,000 years but I've never seen you before." Goddess True Jade replied indifferently, 10,000 years ago, I spent most of my time in the palace and almost never roamed the cultivation world. It's only natural that you've never seen me before. 10,000 years ago? Palace? Elder Bone Spirit was stunned. Before long he realized something and exclaimed, "Why, you're from the great Qian Empire." After a brief pause, a legendary character crossed his mind as he yelped, "Your consort, you of the great Qian Empire." "That's me." Goddess True Jade nodded. "You can pass away in peace now." Elder Bone Spirit's lips curled into a bitter smile as he looked at Goddess True Jade's smooth finger that was extending towards him. He sighed. "After all the scheming, we can't win against fate." Bang. Goddess True Jade tapped Elder Bone Spirit on the glabella. Elder Bone Spirit shuddered and his essence spirit was destroyed as he fell from midair, dead. When they saw that, Suzimo and the others felt emotional. That was the cruelty of the cultivation world. Conjoint body mighty figures were almost at the peak of the cultivation world. However, if these people took a wrong step, they would still end up dead with a tragic ending. Under normal circumstances, the 6 conjoint body mighty figures coming out of seclusion and joining forces to kill Suzimo was a sure victory without any accidents. They had predicted almost all possible variables. Unfortunately, man proposes but God disposes. They had not expected that the woman who had been asleep for 10,000 years in the Great Qian Empire would awaken and become the only variable in this sure-kill situation. This one single variable cost them their lives. "Thank you for saving me, Senior True Jade. I'm extremely grateful." Suzimo bowed towards Goddess True Jade. If Goddess True Jade had not intervened this time round, all of them would have been doomed. She rolled her eyes at Suzimo and said indifferently, "I'm not trying to save you. I just don't want Little Fox to get hurt." Monkey and the others were carefree and did not think much about it, merely thinking that they were lucky. However, the women present were extremely sensitive. Jianghu, Xiaoning and the others shifted their gazes between Goddess True Jade and Suzimo, muttering internally. If she was worried about Little Fox getting hurt, she could have just taken the ladder away. Why did she have to fight? They had a feeling that there was something that no one else knew about between Suzimo and Goddess True Jade. Goddess True Jade's gaze landed on Suzimo's embrace as she asked, "Little Fox, are you going to follow me or are you staying?" "Your Highness, can't you stay as well?" Little Fox blinked her large eyes and asked timidly. Goddess True Jade shook her head. "I'm leaving." After a brief pause she continued, "If you want to leave with me, I'll bring you along. Naturally, I won't let you suffer. However, if you want to stay, I won't force you either." "Your Highness, I can't bear to part with you as well." But. Little Fox was conflicted and could not continue. In her heart, she wanted to stay by Suzimo's side and be with Monkey and the others. She led a carefree life in Thousand Demon Valley and was very happy. However, Goddess True Jade had been in a deep slumber for 10,000 years. Now that she had woken up, she was desolate and pitiful without any old friends by her side. Goddess True Jade smiled. "I understand." With that said, she turned to leave and a voice sounded, "Suzimo, take good care of her. Otherwise, I'll come looking for you again." Chapter 1189, Deducing the Martial Tao. Chapter 1189, Deducing the Martial Tao. Now that this is over, the North region should be peaceful for a period of time. The old immortal crane lamented. After the battle between Suzimo and Tao Lord Xianyu, Stellar Luna sect, Blaze Columbus Valley and some other upper sects and aristocratic families had already expressed that they would no longer hold grudges. Furthermore, now that 6 conjoint body mighty figures were dead, it won't take long before news of it spread through the entire North region. As such, the upper sects and aristocratic families should settle down. Over the years, the North region has been in turmoil. The feudal vassals have risen and the flames of war have spread. Suzimo said, "After the Witch Gu calamity and the destruction of the 3 dynasties, the North region is devastated. I hope that there will be a period of peace and rest." "Zimo, what are your plans from now on?" Jianghu asked. "That's right. Xianyu is dead and the blood feud of the 13 cities of Yen country has been avenged. That's a weight on the shoulder lifted. Brother, where are you going from now on?" Xiaoning echoed. The old immortal crane smiled. "Why don't you follow me back to Ethereal Peak? 100 years ago you were forced to leave because you were afraid of implicating the sect. Now you can return." "Sure." Nian Qi nodded hurriedly. Suzimo remained silent. Why don't you follow us to the demon region? Monkey grinned. When we came out this time round, the spirit tiger used the demon ceiling diagram and brought almost everyone from Howling Moon Mountain that can fight. If we head to the North region's Wild Lion Ridge, we can dominate the place and become territorial lords still. Territorial lords? Shaking its head, the spirit tiger pouted and said in an arrogant manner, "Since we're all here, we've got to become overlords no matter what." That's right. This time round, Monkey did not retort the spirit tiger. Jianghu smiled without saying anything. Be it Wild Lion Ridge or Ethereal Peak, they were both in the North region. As long as he was in the North region, there would definitely be opportunities for them to meet. Su Zimo did not reply the entire time. He merely looked in a direction and fell into deep thought. After a long time, he smiled apologetically. I have to go somewhere else and leave for a period of time. Where? Is it dangerous? Xiaoning asked hurriedly with a worried expression. It's fine. Su Zimo smiled. There's no one else there. It's very safe. After pausing for a moment, he took a deep breath and said slowly with a resolute gaze, There's something that needs to be done. What? Everyone asked instinctively. Deduce the martial Tao. Su Zimo said word by word. Everyone was shocked. They were clear about Su Zimo's Tao heart. The entire cultivation world knew that Desolate Martial wanted to establish a Tao and impart martial arts to all living beings. However, everyone was even clearer about how tough that path was. He was creating a path that no one had ever walked before. He was going to deduce his own Tao and Dharmic arts. That's way too difficult. In a rare moment of speech, Night Spirit said while shaking his head gently. Throughout history, countless wise sages and experts tried this Tao and expended their lifespans but to no avail. Moreover, Su Zimo was only at the Void Reversion realm. That's right. Su Zimo smiled gently. That's why I don't know when I'll be able to return. Where are you going, young master? Nianqi asked. The Tao Inheritance Ground. Su Zimo said in a deep voice, I want to enter the Tao Inheritance Ground again. There are many ancient inheritances there that I haven't comprehended yet. After obtaining those inheritances, I'll fuse them with my life, what I've seen, heard, learned and understood. I'll do my best to deduce the martial Tao. This was the result of Su Zimo's careful consideration. His current cultivation was already at the perfected Void Reversion realm. As for the Tao Inheritance Ground, it was a separate dimension with many seals. If he was at the Dharma characteristic realm, he would not be able to enter it. This was his final chance. This time round, no one tried to persuade or stop him. That was Su Zimo's Tao heart. He had to do it. It wasn't easy for us brothers to get together. Now we're going to separate again. The spirit tiger was a little frustrated. It's not like he's going to some dangerous place. We'll meet again sooner or later. Monkey was rather carefree about it. Let's take a walk around Wild Lion Ridge then. If we're in a good mood, we'll take over it and stay for a period of time. Once you're out, look for us at the Wild Lion Ridge. Things will definitely move smoothly at the mention of our names. Sure. Su Zimo laughed and turned to ask, What are your plans, Xiaoning? I'll stay in the North region for a period of time first and see if the Witchgu calamity will resurface. Xiaoning held Ji Yaoshua's arm. I can accompany Sister Yaoshua as well. If the North region is fine, I'll head back to Elixir Yang sect to take a look. Yes, it's been more than 100 years since you've been back as well. It's time for you to head back. Su Zimo nodded. The Great Zhou dynasty had fused with 3 dynasties and there were many political matters to attend to. Naturally, Ji Yaoshua chose to stay in the Great Zhou dynasty. Nianqi returned to Ethereal Peak. Everyone knew their paths and in the blink of an eye, it was time to part. Young master. Right then a timid voice sounded. Everyone turned towards the sound. In the crowd, a boy looked down at Su Zimo. His cheeks were flushed red as though he was nervous. Pinching the corner of his shirt, he asked softly, Where am I going? Little Tao Yao, of course you're coming with us. Qing Qing pinched Tao Yao's tender cheeks and said with a smile, You're a demon. If you follow us, we'll bring you to live a good life. Tao Yao's face flushed even redder but he said nothing. Su Zimo smiled and asked, Where do you want to go? See, can I follow you to that Tao Inheritance Ground, young master? Tao Yao asked expectantly, blinking his sparkling eyes. No. Su Zimo shook his head. It was not because he was heartless. the Tao inheritance ground was restricted by the wills of mighty figures. Tao Yao's blood qi and Dharmic powers would be restricted upon entering, and that would not be beneficial to this child. Furthermore, the place he was headed to was a forbidden ground in the Tao inheritance ground that no one else could enter. Oh. Tao Yao was slightly disappointed. Su Zimo said, "Why don't you follow Qing Qing and the others to Wild Lion Ridge?" Tao Yao tilted his head slightly, seemingly in deep thought. After a moment he asked, "If I leave, who will protect the grandpas, grandmas, uncles and aunties of Pingyang Town?" Upon hearing that question, Su Zimo's gaze at Tao Yao turned even gentler. "Nobody." He shook his head. "I'll stay here then. I'll stay in Pingyang Town," Tao Yao said seriously. Qing Qing said, "But how lonely will you be as the only demon?" "I won't." Tao Yao revealed an innocent smile. "The grandpas and grandmas in the town are very nice to me. They're not afraid of me and even told me many things about young master in the past." The elders of Pingyang Town were extremely grateful towards the Su family and the second young master of the Su family. When Su Hong was king, he protected Pingyang Town from the flames of war. Later on, when the allied army of the three dynasties invaded, second young master Su appeared and buried the allied army of the three dynasties in Songlang mountain range. In the town, he killed many nascent souls that were chasing after him. Many people witnessed that scene. Some of the children back then were more than 100 years old by now. They were now the elderly of Pingyang Town. In fact, they were even vaguely aware that the reason why Pingyang Town was able to survive in this chaotic world was because of second young master Su. The stories of the Su family and the legend of second young master Su ascending to immortality were passed down from their ancestors. "All right." Su Zimo caressed Tao Yao's forehead and said gently, "Stay in Pingyang Town and wait for my return." Ugh. Tao Yao's eyes lit up and he nodded vigorously. Chapter 1190, Entering the Cemetery Again. Chapter 1190, Entering the Cemetery Again. The sect master of Dragon Tiger sect and the others were gathered together and had not gone far. They were looking in the direction of the old capital of Yen country hundreds of kilometers away, waiting for the final outcome. Before long, a violent fluctuation came from the direction of the old capital. The spirit consciousness barrier and spatial seal on the outer perimeter had been removed and the outline of a dilapidated city could be vaguely seen. "It's over." The sect master of Dragon Tiger sect heaved a sigh of relief. In his opinion, the 6 conjoint body mighty figures had already killed Su Zimo and the others before unlocking the spatial seal. Desolate Marshal establishing his Tao? Strongest monster incarnate in history? He can't escape the fate of being killed either. The sect master of Een Ghost sect sneered. Desolate Marshal's death can be considered as a weight lifted off our shoulders. The sect master of Blood Mist sect chuckled and shook his head. Given that lad's talent, it's hard to imagine what level he will reach if he was allowed to continue growing. That's right. If he enters the Dharma characteristic realm, even the 6 conjoint body mighty figures might not be able to kill him. The sect master of Mystic Firmament Divine Cult agreed deeply. Unfortunately, a monster incarnate of a generation was killed just like that. The sect master of Stellar Luna sect lamented. The Murong clan's matriarch shook her head in pity as well. In reality, after witnessing Desolate Marshal with their own eyes, they were already subdued by his bearing and were unwilling to be his enemy. To think that Desolate Marshal would still be doomed to end in such a tragic state. "Let's go." The sect master of Stellar Luna sect said, "Now that Desolate Marshal is dead, the patriarch of the Dragon Burial Valley is probably about to head out. I wonder what sort of chaos is about to happen in the North region." "Yes." The Murong clan's matriarch nodded and turned, prepared to leave. Right then she swept her gaze and could not help but exclaim softly. She paused and looked in the direction of the old capital of Yen country with a confused expression. The sect masters of the upper sects and leaders of the other aristocratic families noticed this as well. A spirit vessel rose from the old capital and sped over. "This?" The sect master of Dragon Tiger sect frowned slightly. It was definitely not Elder Bone Spirit and the others on the spirit vessel. Given the capabilities of conjoint body mighty figures, there was no need for them to ride on a spirit vessel. Furthermore, the speed of the spirit vessel would not be that slow either. Could Elder Bone Spirit and the others have shown mercy to spare some unimportant people? While everyone was pondering, the spirit vessel approached. Figures stood at the bow of the spirit vessel. The sect master of Dragon Tiger sect and the others focused their gazes and could not help but be shocked. Instinctively, they opened their mouths with disbelief in their eyes. The leader of the spirit vessel was dressed in green robes with black hair that cascaded down like a waterfall. He had delicate features. It was Dao being Desolate Marshal who was supposed to be dead. How could this be? What were Elder Bone Spirit and the others doing? If Desolate Marshal was not dead, why did Elder Bone Spirit and the others remove the spirit consciousness barrier and release the spatial seal, allowing Desolate Marshal and the others to leave? The sect masters of Dragon Tiger sect, Blood Mist sect and the others glared at the figure on the spirit vessel with widened eyes. A guess flashed through their minds. However, that guess was way too shocking and impossible. Right then, the figure on the spirit vessel bowed slightly and looked over with a hint of mockery in his pitch-black eyes. The sect master of Dragon Tiger sect and the others panicked. In fact, they did not even dare to meet Su Zimo's gaze. The spirit vessel passed over their heads quickly without stopping. The sect master of Dragon Tiger sect and the others exchanged glances and hurried off, heading towards the old capital of Yen country. They wanted to head over and see what was going on. The sect master of Stellar Luna sect and the others followed curiously as well. Before long, many sect masters of upper sects and leaders of aristocratic families arrived above the old capital and looked down at the corpses in the ruins. The sect master of Dragon Tiger sect and the others turned pale as their bodies swayed. Dead. All 6 conjoint body mighty figures were dead without exception. A chill ran down the back of the sect master of Dragon Tiger sect and the others when they recalled the look in Desolate Marshal's eyes. They did not know what exactly happened in the old capital. However, they knew one thing. The attempt to kill him this time round was an extremely stupid decision. On the spirit vessel. Su Zimo did not attack the sect master of Dragon Tiger sect and the others. Firstly, he had just engaged in a huge battle with Dao Lord Shenyu and had expended a lot of energy. He did not want to start another battle. Secondly, the death of 6 conjoint body mighty figures was already a huge loss for these upper sects and aristocratic families. Furthermore, the 6 mighty figures were no longer related to the sect. There was no way he could kill all the sect masters of the upper sects just because of the mighty figures. Of course, this matter would not end just like that. He would remember this debt and settle it in the future. Monkey and the others were reluctant and did not leave first. They insisted on sending Su Zimo to Dragon Burial Valley before parting ways. Nobody was in a hurry to travel as they chatted merrily on the spirit vessel. Although the spirit vessel was slow, it still arrived at the edge of Dragon Burial Valley after more than 10 days. Alright, there's no need to send me further. Turning around to look at everyone, Su Zimo smiled and cupped his fists. I have no idea when I'll return upon leaving. Everyone take care. Young master. Little Fox called out gently with reddened eyes. She was on the brink of tears at their imminent parting. Slapping his forehead, Su Zimo took out a pitch-black metal barrier from his storage bag and stuffed it into Little Fox's hands. He smiled. I almost forgot that I haven't returned this fire-blocking basket to you. Pausing for a moment, he pinched her on the nose gently and teased, Are you feeling sad because you're worried I'll leave with your treasure? No way. Little Fox laughed through her tears and harumphed. Zimo, be careful. If anything doesn't work out, don't force yourself. Ji Yaoshue reminded with a gentle expression. Yes. Su Zimo nodded and turned around. Waving his hand, he leaped down the Dragon Burial Valley. In order to enter the Dao Inheritance Ground, one had to possess the strength of the conjoint body realm to break through the spatial barrier. Goddess True Jade's whereabouts were unknown and she had already left. In the North region, the only way to meet that requirement now was to return to the Dragon Burial Valley. Su Zimo entered the ancient temple and went straight to the backyard. Monk Yuan Bei was sitting there. The red-headed ghost was not far away as well. Beside the two of them, there was a gigantic black vortex that was dark and deep. It blew with a cold wind that led to an unknown place. It seemed like the two of them had been waiting for a long time. Have you decided? Monk Yuan Bei asked. Yes. Su Zimo nodded. This is the best opportunity. Monk Yuan Bei pointed to the black vortex beside him and nodded with a smile. Go on. I hope that you can witness the descent of the martial Dao before I pass away. Definitely. After bidding farewell to Monk Yuan Bei and the red-headed ghost, Su Zimo leaped into the black vortex. After a moment of dizziness, he descended into a space that was filled with a savage aura. Not far away there was a region that was filled with a biting cold wind. It was the Three Tribulations domain. Su Zimo took a deep breath and walked in. He had once passed the test of the Three Tribulations domain. Now that he crossed it once more, he faced no resistance. In no time he had already arrived at the center of the Three Tribulations domain, Stone Statue Cemetery. Chapter 1191, Arrival of the Witch Race. Chapter 1191, Arrival of the Witch Race. Looking at the 32 inheritance stone statues in the cemetery, Su Zimo smiled gently and murmured, "I'm back again." As though they sensed something, the inheritance stone statues shone with beams of light that shot into the skies, illuminating one another in a spectacular manner. Those who could leave their inheritance in this cemetery were all top-tier figures who dominated the ancient era. For example, although half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky of the Fiend sects died, he left behind the Tao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra and nearly made use of Su Zimo's Tao Heart to reincarnate a second time. What sort of capabilities were those? Furthermore, there were inheritances from the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sects in this cemetery. If he could comprehend all 30-odd inheritances, his comprehension of the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend Taos would reach an unimaginable level. There was another important reason why Su Zimo was prepared to deduce the martial Tao in this cemetery. Before long he stopped in front of an inheritance stone statue. The cultivator who left behind the inheritance stone statue was also a half-martial ancestor back then, and his Tao title was instant. Time sped up within 5 feet of the stone statue of half-martial ancestor instant. A day outside was a year here. Back then, Su Zimo relied on the 15 years of cultivation here to break through to the void reversion realm and kill many titular disciples and Diin. He was clear that it might take up to 1,000 years just to inherit the 30-odd legacies here in the cemetery. Furthermore, he had to exhaust his mental energy to deduce the martial Tao. That would take even longer. Perhaps such a long time would not affect him much. However, there could be a massive change in Tianhuang mainland. How many major events had happened in the cultivation world in the past 100 years, let alone 1,000 years? The blood-colored ghost face appeared. The god, Rakshasa and even witch race had all appeared. All signs indicated that a storm was about to descend upon Tianhuang mainland, possibly restoring the chaotic situation of the ancient era where everyone was in danger. At that time, most cultivators might not even be able to protect themselves, let alone weak mortals. If he had truly spent thousands of years away, even if he managed to divine the martial Tao and return, the world would have changed. Therefore, Su Zimo intended to make use of the 5 feet area beneath his feet to divine. Even if 1,000 years passed here, it would only be 3 years on Tianhuang mainland. This was equivalent to stealing the heavenly secrets. Of course, if Su Zimo was here, time would definitely leave a mark on him. In other words, although only 3 years would have passed on Tianhuang mainland, Su Zimo would have spent 1,000 years of his lifespan here. One had to pay a price if they wanted to steal the heavenly secrets. Let's begin. Su Zimo assumed a lotus position and exchanged glances with the stone statue of half-martial ancestor instant. 2 divine lights burst forth from the eyes of the stone statue and entered Su Zimo's eyes as a long-lost cultivation technique gradually entered his mind. Deep at night. At the intersection of the North region and the Middle continent, in a vast forest, ferocious beasts roamed and birds covered the skies. Countless ferocious beasts fought and let out deafening roars. Right then, 13 figures descended into the forest. The cries in the forest gradually subsided. Before long, silence ensued. All the ferocious beasts on the ground seemed to be stunned by a sinister aura and did not dare to make a single sound. Any demon beast with some cultivation would be extremely sharp towards danger. They knew that an unimaginably terrifying existence had arrived in the forest. This was a fear and suppression from the depths of their bloodlines. The bright moonlight shone on the 13 figures and shone with a faint green light, resembling ghosts in the night. The 13 figures wore green robes and large hoods that covered their faces. Even if someone was here, they would not be able to make out their appearances. Their leader was leaning on a white, creepy walking stick. It was dark under the hood and there were 2 faint green lights shining from it. It was breathtaking, like ghost fires burning in a cemetery. Elder Scorpion, we've already arrived in the North region. Should we head straight to the Dragon Bone Valley? A figure asked softly. There's no rush. The cultivator named Elder Scorpion said slowly with a hoarse voice. The young master died in the Dragon Bone Valley, so we'll definitely head there. The dragon race has to be accountable for that. Pausing for a moment, Elder Scorpion said, for now, let's head elsewhere first. Where? 10,000 Goose Swamp. Elder Scorpion said, the young master followed a remnant of the witch race who was from Goose sect. Now that the young master is dead, everyone from Goose sect will have to die with him. Although Elder Scorpion's tone was calm, his words were filled with killing intent. Those 13 figures were from the witch race of the primordial 9 races. Just as those witches were about to leave, a faint sound of crickets echoed from the forest beneath their feet. The face beneath Elder Scorpion's hood frowned and he suddenly asked, you guys haven't left the Ghost Curse tomb before. It must be difficult holding it in, right? Yes. The witches behind him replied. Elder Scorpion said indifferently, the crickets in the forest are disturbing me. Attack and kill all the living beings in the forest. All right. The witches behind Elder Scorpion replied excitedly. An hour later. After the 13 witches left, the forest behind them was already strewn with corpses and rivers of blood with a torrential blood stench. Half a month later at the 10,000 Goose Swamp. The 13 witches descended. Everyone looked down at the charred ground beneath their feet and exclaimed softly. This was the place of Goose sect, but now, it was reduced to a charred ruin, as though all living beings were burned to ashes by a fire. How could this be? Someone destroyed Goose sect before us. Elder Scorpion released his spirit consciousness and scanned for a long time. There were no signs of life within a radius of hundreds of kilometers. Elder Scorpion descended and passed through the charred ground, arriving at a dried-up pool underground. He sniffed and narrowed his eyes. It's the aura of a divine spring. Unfortunately, someone else got their hands on it first. A witch said softly. What happened here? What has the fire here got to do with the young master? A few witches frowned and asked. Let me take a look. Elder Scorpion extended a withered arm from his wide sleeves and conjured hand seals repeatedly. Finally, he tapped his glabella and spat out a strange word. A sinister energy fluctuation spread out. It was as though time was reversing in front of Elder Scorpion. The ruins vanished and countless structures of Goose sect were erected once more, revealing the 10,000 Goose Swamp. Such methods were truly shocking. He saw a huge fire. A green-robed cultivator conjured hand seals and released terrifying flames that burned hundreds of kilometers into the distance, burning the goo worms in the 10,000 Goose Swamp to death. He merely glanced at the cultivator briefly. That was because he was completely drawn in by another scene. He saw an extremely terrifying figure that could not have existed in this world. Chapter 1192 Scale. Chapter 1192, Scale. Pust. Elder Scorpion's heart skipped a beat and he gasped. His palm trembled and the Dharmic art that he had just conjured dissipated instantly. How was that possible? How could a bloodline from that race still exist? Elder Scorpion's eyes were filled with shock and his aura was unstable. Elder, what happened? Sensing the abnormality in Elder Scorpion, a witch hurried forward and asked softly. Elder Scorpion closed his eyes and remained silent, merely panting slowly to compose himself. Was he seeing things? He was still in disbelief as he recalled what he had seen. The Dharmic art he released earlier on was incomplete and was close to a divine power. Even with his capabilities, he could only rely on the remnant memories of this place to trace back to what happened. It was already impossible for him to release that Dharmic art again and catch a clear glimpse of that terrifying figure. He could only recall through his memories. There was no mistake. Even if he was in a daze and did not manage to catch sight of that figure clearly, there was no way he could be mistaken about the aura that came from the primordial era. Even after the sands of time had passed, the aura emitted by that figure still gave him shudders. It was a shuddering feeling. It was like a rat meeting a cat. Even if he wanted to resist, he could not. To his relief, the figure had yet to truly grow. Elder Scorpion's expression darkened. Still worried, he released his spirit consciousness and scanned the surroundings carefully. He did not miss out on anything even beneath the scorched earth and cracks of the ruins. A long time later, his body shuddered and he arrived beside a ruin of rocks in a flash. Waving his sleeves, he sent many rocks above flying, creating a huge pit. Thereafter, he bent down and removed his hood, revealing a pair of ghastly green eyes that glared at the huge pit before him. There was nothing else there but a black scale lying quietly. Even though it was buried by the ruins, the scale was still shiny without any scratches. It was only when he saw the scale that Elder Scorpion was certain that the bloodline still existed. Furthermore, it was growing stealthily. This was a huge matter. The death of the young master caused a huge stir in the witch race. However, if word of this were to spread, the entire witch race would explode. Elder Scorpion, what's wrong? A witch walked forward and stuck his head out, asking curiously. Elder Scorpion's spirit consciousness moved and he put away the scale instantly. He had no intention of telling the younger generation of the witch race behind him about this for the time being lest they panic. It's fine. He replied casually without batting an eyelid. Where should we go next? The witch asked again. Dragon Bone Valley. Initially, Elder Scorpion wanted to make use of the secret skill of the witch race to trace the aura left behind by the young master and check out where the latter had been. However, since this discovery, he could only change his plan at the last minute. They would head to the Dragon Bone Valley right away to resolve that matter as soon as possible before returning to the sect. Without hesitation, Elder Scorpion ordered and everyone from the witch race stood up to leave. 3 days later, Dragon Bone Valley. The dragon true body was cultivating in seclusion within its lair. The spirit refinement technique of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, the Yin and Yang spirit sections, came from the Dragon King Desolate Ocean. The words of the dragon race within were difficult to understand. Prior to this, Su Zimo's cultivation speed was extremely slow and he stumbled. However, after coming to the dragon race, he learned the dragon race's language and cultivated some basic aura cultivation techniques of the dragon race. Many of the confusion in the Yin and Yang spirit sections were easily resolved. It now took him half the effort to cultivate the 2 cultivation techniques. In the span of a mere 11 years in the Dragon Bone Valley, Su Zimo's cultivation had improved tremendously and he was even at the perfected void reversion realm. This day, Su Zimo was awakened by a voice transmission. He had already instructed that nobody was to disturb his seclusion if nothing major happened within the clan. Now that someone was calling for him, it meant that something major had happened to the dragon race. Su Zimo pushed the doors open and walked out. Long Shi was standing at the entrance with an anxious expression. When she saw Su Zimo come out, she said hurriedly, "Not good, the witch race has arrived." Which race? A cold glint flashed through Su Zimo's eyes. The reason why the witch race came to the dragon race at this time should be because of the young master of the witch race. Long Shi continued, "I heard that the mighty figure of the witch race leading them has terrifying combat strength and has been famous for a long time. He's older than most of the elders in the race. Many elders of the race are receiving them at the Divine Dragon Hall and they want you to join them." "I've got it." Su Zimo nodded and was about to move. "Long Zhuyu." Long Shi hesitated for a moment and instructed, "Be careful when you're in the hall. Don't go against this mighty figure of the witch race." "What's wrong?" Su Zimo raised his brow and asked instead, "As the young master of the Illumination Dragon lineage, would the witch race dare to attack and kill me in the Dragon Bone Valley?" Long Shi shook her head. "That won't happen. Don't worry, the dragon race protects their own. The elders will definitely protect you." After a brief pause, she continued, "However, a young master of the witch race with a noble status has died after all. It's not easy to explain this matter either. You might have to suffer a little, but it'll pass after a while." Su Zimo nodded and did not say anything more, heading to the Divine Dragon Hall with Long Shi. Before long, he arrived at the entrance of the Grand Hall. Even before he entered the hall, Su Zimo already felt waves of pressure. On the main seat opposite the entrance sat 5 figures with powerful auras. They were elders of the 5 lineages of the dragon race. The arrival of the 5 elders was clear proof of how highly they regarded the witch race. Among them was Elder 4 of the Illumination Dragon lineage who held Su Zimo in high regards. The other 4 elders looked familiar as well. The elder of the Horned Dragon lineage was Long Zhong. Prior to this, he tried to force Su Zimo to hand over Baron and the reverse scale secret skills. Unfortunately, he did not succeed. At that moment, Long Zhong's expression was grim as he glared at Su Zimo coldly and harumphed. A figure sat at the bottom right of the 5 elders. He was extremely young and wore green-blue armor. With a burning gaze and a straight back, he sat there with a mighty aura that could almost match the 5 elders. Young dragons like Long Shi could only stand in the Divine Dragon Hall. However, this dragon was not only sitting. Furthermore, his seat was only beneath the 5 elders. That was because he was the number 1 of the Heavenly Dragon ranking and the only 5-clawed divine dragon of the dragon race, Long Tsung. Opposite him, an old man in green robes sat to the left of the 5 elders. The old man's hair was thin and he wielded a white walking stick in his left hand. His cheeks were gaunt and his eyes were deep with a green glint. The most prominent feature of the witch race was their green eyes. The deeper the green color, the purer the bloodline of the witch race. Behind the old witch stood 12 juniors of the witch race. The atmosphere in the hall was heavy. That was because apart from those people, there was another person lying in the middle of the hall. However, it was a dead man. It was the young master of the witch race. Chapter 1193 Confrontation in the Hall. Chapter 1193 Confrontation in the Hall. The moment Su Zimo appeared at the entrance of the Grand Hall, he attracted gazes. The eyes of the dozens of witches were filled with hostility and killing intent. Su Zimo believed that if they were not in the Dragon Bone Valley, those witches might have charged forward and torn him into pieces. The old man from the witch race who was sitting turned over and his green eyes suddenly rippled. He narrowed his gaze and glared at Su Zimo's face. He seemed to have seen that appearance somewhere before. The old man from the witch race pondered for a moment and a thought flashed through his mind. 10,000 Goose Swamp. The cultivator who released the flames. When he used his secret skill to retrace the past, he vaguely remembered that the green-robed cultivator looked like this. Of course he was not certain either. After all, he had merely caught a fleeting glance and his attention was drawn over by another terrifying figure. Furthermore, he vaguely remembered that the cultivator had green robes and black hair. However, the person before him was clad in blazing battle armor and had shoulder-length scarlet hair. Their auras were completely different as well. "Who are you?" the old man of the witch race asked slowly. "He's Long Zhu, the young master of the Illumination Dragon lineage." Illumination Dragon Elder 4 stood up and nodded to Su Zimo, reassuring the latter. He introduced, "This is Elder Scorpion of the witch race." "In that case, you were the one who killed our young master?" Elder Scorpion asked. "Yes." Su Zimo entered the hall fearlessly. "Why did you set the 10,000 Goose Swamp on fire?" Elder Scorpion glared at Su Zimo fixedly and suddenly changed the topic. The questioning technique was extremely ingenious. He did not ask if Su Zimo had been to the 10,000 Goose Swamp. Instead he asked directly why Su Zimo set the 10,000 Goose Swamp on fire. It would give Su Zimo the illusion that he already knew everything. If Su Zimo had been to the 10,000 Goose Swamp and set the fire, his expression would definitely reveal flaws and his mind would waver. Unfortunately, the one who had been to the 10,000 Goose Swamp was the Green Lotus True Body. His Dragon True Body did not know about that matter. When he heard Elder Scorpion's sudden question, Su Zimo was stunned and could not react in time. Noticing the slight change in Su Zimo's expression, Elder Scorpion could not help but wonder internally, could I have thought too much? "Elder Scorpion, what are you talking about?" Illumination Dragon Elder 4 asked with a frown, puzzled. Elder Scorpion turned to look at the elder of the 5 lineages in the middle and pointed at Su Zimo. "Did he leave the Dragon Bone Valley a year ago?" "Absolutely not." Illumination Dragon Elder 4 shook his head in denial. The elders of the other 4 dragon lineages shook their heads as well. Even if the Horned Dragon Elder, Long Zhong, had some animosity towards Su Zimo, he had to admit that the latter had been in the Dragon Bone Valley for the past few years. Furthermore, it was extremely difficult for any dragon to want to leave the valley. Su Zimo was not qualified. Elder Scorpion nodded and let the matter go for the time being. There were no emotions on his bark-like face. Without any warning he turned around once more. There was a strange power in his eyes that seemed to penetrate Su Zimo's body and strike his Dao heart. Su Zimo was expressionless but his heart skipped a beat. The witch race specialized in beguiling techniques. This was the first time he had seen a technique that could break a cultivator's Dao heart with a single glance. This was indeed a secret skill of the witch race. If a cultivator's Dao heart was slightly imperfect, there was a high chance that their foundation would waver against that gaze and they might even end up losing their mind in their future cultivation. If a cultivator's Tao heart had any flaws, that gaze would be able to destroy their minds completely. That power was almost impossible to detect and defend against. Unfortunately, although Su Zimo's body possessed the bloodline of the dragon race, his Tao heart was the same. It was unshakable, and even the three tribulations domain could not sway it. The strange power descended and dissipated without causing any ripples on Su Zimo's body. Su Zimo's expression was calm and composed. A hint of surprise flickered through Elder Scorpion's eyes briefly. It seemed as though nothing had happened throughout the process. However, those with sharper eyes were clear that Su Zimo had just experienced immense danger. If he did not deal with it correctly, the best outcome would be for his Tao heart to waver and his cultivation to be stuck in the future. If it was bad, there was a high chance that his Tao heart would have collapsed on the spot. Illumination Dragon Elder 4 broke out in cold sweat and heaved a sigh of relief. Elder Scorpion merely cast a single glance this time round. Even then, Elder 4 could not even stop the former. Furthermore, that power was untraceable and he did not know how he should interfere even if he wanted to. Thankfully, Su Zimo defended himself. Illumination Dragon Elder 4's expression darkened. Elder Scorpion, as a conjoint body expert, don't you think that it's shameful for you to attack a junior of the dragon race? Hee hee. Elder Scorpion chuckled dryly. It's just a small test. If this junior can't defend against it, he can only blame his shallow cultivation. That's easy for you to say. Illumination Dragon Elder 4 sneered. If he failed to defend, there was a high chance his cultivation would have been crippled by you. That warmed Su Zimo's heart. No matter what, Illumination Dragon Elder 4 truly had his best intentions at heart. Furthermore, he had caused huge trouble by killing the young master of the witch race. The fact that Illumination Dragon Elder 4 was so domineering when the witch race came to question him was proof of how much the Illumination Dragon lineage valued him. That's enough. The Horned Dragon Elder Long Zhong waved his hand. We called this lad here because we have important matters to discuss. Don't harp on this matter. Furthermore, isn't he fine? The elders of the other three lineages nodded as well. Illumination Dragon Elder 4 harumphed and said nothing more. Elder Scorpion chuckled but did not let it go. Instead, he glared at Illumination Dragon Elder 4 and asked, "So what if he's crippled? Our young master of the witch race is already dead. Which of you dragons is going to pay for this blood debt?" It did not matter which of the primordial 9 races it was, the death of a young master was a monumental event. Even the death of an ordinary clansman of the primordial 9 races could bring about a calamity. The might of the wrath of the primordial 9 races was clear judging from the catastrophe that befell the great Qian Empire 10,000 years ago. If this matter was not handled properly, there was a high chance that the dragon and witch race would end up on bad terms. Illumination Dragon Elder 4 said in a deep voice, "There's more to this matter. Furthermore, your young master of the witch race was the one who released an essence spirit secret skill on Longzhu first. Longzhu was forced to retaliate before killing him by accident. It was definitely not intentional." "Oh." Elder Scorpion said coolly, "Not intentional? That's easy for you to say. Is the dragon race implying that our young master of the witch race deserved to die?" "Elder Scorpion, there's no need to get angry," the Blue Dragon Elder said. The elders of the 5 lineages still took the Blue Dragon Elder as the leader. The Blue Dragon Elder pondered for a moment. Elder 4 of the Illumination Dragon lineage did not mean that. He merely said that this should be a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Elder Scorpion stood up slowly with a dark expression. The young master of the witch race came to your dragon race as a guest but was killed here by someone from your dragon race. Are you telling me now that this is a misunderstanding? The most amusing thing is that the explanation of your dragon race is that our young master of the witch race attacked this lad first. In that case, let me ask you, why would our young master come to the Dragon Bone Valley to kill a dragon? Chapter 1194 Challenge. Chapter 1194, Challenge. This? The Blue Dragon Elder shook his head. We don't know either. Although they knew about the conflict between Su Zimo and the young master of the witch race, they did not know why the latter attacked him. Su Zimo was probably the only one who knew the reason behind it. Long Tsang glanced sideways at Su Zimo deeply. He had already noticed that something was amiss back then, and it was not surprising that the witch race elder thought about it. Elder Scorpion said, "This is the Dragon Bone Valley. Even a fool knows what will happen if he attacks a dragon. Did my young master go mad and wanted to court death? Is the dragon race going to use such a ridiculous reason to dodge the question?" Illumination Dragon Elder 4 took a deep breath and said, "Although it sounds ridiculous, there were many dragons present at the time and everyone saw it clearly. Would I believe such words?" Elder Scorpion sneered, "This means that you're telling me that the young master of my race came all the way to Dragon Bone Valley to commit suicide. We are all part of the primordial 9 races and you are all reasonable people." He continued indifferently, "I'd like to ask everyone if you would let the young master of the dragon race run to our race's ghost-cursed tomb and die there for no reason. Would you let things go if we gave you such an explanation?" The elders of the 5 lineages exchanged glances without saying anything. The blue dragon elder pondered for a moment. "Elder Scorpion, now that things have come to this, there won't be any outcome even if we insist on our claims. What do you want? Why don't you say it?" "My race's young master died. Naturally, the murderer has to pay with his life," Elder Scorpion said slowly. "That's impossible," Illumination Dragon Elder 4 denied flatly. Elder Scorpion opened his mouth and revealed a few lone yellow teeth. "The fact that we're only asking the dragon race to repay the death of our young master with a single life is already the most we can compromise. If the young master had died outside, it won't be enough even if millions of living beings were buried with him." Illumination Dragon Elder 4 shook his head. "Don't even think about it. Long Zhu is the young master of the Illumination Dragon lineage and will definitely not pay with his life." Throughout the entire process, Su Zimo watched coldly from the sidelines. As a junior of the dragon race, he did not have the chance to speak either. Right from the beginning, it was Illumination Dragon Elder 4 who protected him and fought against Elder Scorpion without being disadvantaged. "Interesting." Elder Scorpion glanced at Su Zimo and sniffed in the air before saying with a fake smile, "If I'm not wrong, the dragon blood in Long Zhu's body is not pure at all." The expressions of the elders of the 5 lineages changed slightly. That was indeed the truth. Up till now, Su Zimo was still unable to conjure a complete dragon form. Elder Scorpion said, "The dragon race has already fallen so badly. To think that a remnant beast with an impure bloodline would become a young master." The moment he said that, the elders of the 5 lineages looked terrible. The Horned Dragon Elder Long Zhong harumphed coldly. "That's a matter of the Illumination Dragon lineage. There's no such situation among the other 4 dragon lineages. In that case, what's wrong with sacrificing the life of a remnant beast with an impure bloodline for our young master?" Elder Scorpion said, "Why? Is there really no one else from the Illumination Dragon lineage that you have to depend on this remnant beast?" The elders of the blue, winged and hornless dragon lineages did not say anything. Under normal circumstances, there was nothing inappropriate about using a remnant of the dragon race in exchange for a friendship with the witch race and ending this conflict. It was definitely worth it. However, this remnant of the dragon race was different. Firstly, he was the young master of the Illumination Dragon lineage. Secondly, he was the number 1 of the hidden dragon ranking. Most importantly, the Illumination Dragon lineage thought highly of this lad. Whether or not they would accede to the request depended on the Illumination Dragon lineage. Therefore, the elders of the 3 lineages said nothing. However, the Horned Dragon Elder Long Zhong was tempted. "In my opinion, no." Illumination Dragon Elder 4 could already read Long Zhong's mind and rejected him before he could finish. The witch race can discuss any compensation and conditions they want. However, he's the young master of the Illumination Dragon lineage. It's impossible for him to die. Illumination Dragon Elder 4's tone was resolute and unquestionable. The situation was in a stalemate. Elder Scorpion's expression darkened completely as well. Long Tsang did not say anything the entire time. It was not that he was not qualified. He possessed the bloodline of a 5-clawed divine dragon, and his status in the hall was almost on par with the elders of the 5 lineages. The reason why he did not say anything was because he did not agree with Elder Scorpion's suggestion either. The life of the young master of the witch race was precious. However, the lives of those of the dragon race were not cheap either. It was impossible to repay a life with a life. Although he declared that he wanted to suppress Su Zimo, Deep in his heart, he thought highly of the latter. In fact, he even wanted Su Zimo to grow before he defeated the latter. I am Wuxia and I have a doubt. Right then, a witch stood out from behind Elder Scorpion. The person named Wuxia had a dark expression and a cold gaze. He looked at Su Zimo and asked, "You're just a bastard with an impure bloodline. Your cultivation realm is only at the void reversion realm, the same level as my young master. I want to know how a bastard child like you managed to kill our young master in a single move." Someone had long reported the situation to the witch race. That was the reason why Wuxia said that. Elder Scorpion did not stop him, as though he was waiting for an answer as well. In his opinion, that was impossible as well. From what he knew, the young master of the witch race still had protection talismans and other treasures. How could he be killed in a single move? Furthermore, both of them were at the void reversion realm. The reason why the young master of the witch race could become the young master was because he was invincible among his peers and had terrifying combat strength. How could he be killed so easily? What are you trying to say? Su Zimo asked with a calm expression. Wuxia declared loudly, "I'm saying that if you can't provide an answer, it will mean that it was a deliberate attempt by the dragon race to kill our young master." That was a huge accusation. The witch race could start a war against the dragon race because of this. You want an answer? It's simple. Su Zimo said indifferently, "Your young master was weak and was killed by me in a single move." Bullshit. Wuxia pointed at Su Zimo and hollered, "Bastard, there's no way you can hurt our young master." Su Zimo's expression turned cold. Elder Scorpion's attack that struck his Dao heart without warning earlier on had already aroused his killing intent. Now that Wuxia did not know what was good for him and scolded him as a bastard, his killing intent intensified. There were not many people who dared to speak to him like that after he established his Dao. Wuxia stood out and glared at Su Zimo, saying slowly, "I'm also at the void reversion realm. Since you're so powerful, how about we fight to the death? It doesn't matter. Let's see what you've got that can kill our young master in a single move." Elder Scorpion remained silent and did not express anything. It was clear that he acknowledged the matter. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.